Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. After marrying the vegetative female devil, I was so happy. Chapter 41. Luo Zhiro thought that Chu Baiquan would use various methods, including various assassinations, to target her. But she didn't expect that Chu Baiquan would start from Si Chen. Not only that, Chu Baiquan also took advantage of her inability to convey her thoughts to the outside world to constantly provoke Si Chen's feelings for her. Even though she knew that her heart had confirmed her and Si Chen's relationship as husband and wife, Si Chen's shadow completely filled her heart. But all this is only known to her, and outsiders don't know it at all. Under this premise, Si Chen would easily be interfered by outsiders. Especially since Si Chen has never been in contact with Luo Zhiro before, now he can only rely on Chu Baiquan's one-sided words to make his own judgment. Luo Zhiro is really scared. She was afraid that Si Chen would be influenced by Chu Baiquan, and she was even more afraid that Si Chen would think that she would drive him away as soon as she woke up. Luo Zhiro really wanted to tell Si Chen that she could sense everything in the outside world. She could feel everything that happened during this time, and she knew what Si Chen had paid for her. She even wanted to say to Si Chen, "Ms. Sir, don't believe what he says." Luo Zhiro, as the leader of the White Feather sect and the supreme power of the 9th level of the Tribulation Realm, she never thought that she would have such a helpless moment. Although she had unlimited murderous intent towards Chu Baiquan and full of love for Si Chen, she was unable to convey any information to the outside world. Everything can only be judged by Si Chen himself. This was also the source of all Luo Zhirou's fears. She was really afraid that Si Chen would leave her. And just when Luo Zhiro fell into deep panic, a pair of warm big hands held her hand again. Just like when she was deep in darkness before, Si Chen's gentle voice sounded slowly. "What happens to my wife and I in the future? It's not this old man's turn to make irresponsible remarks." Single quote exclamation mark. Single quote. Hearing Si Chen's firm yet gentle words, Luo Zhiro was suddenly stunned. Luo Zhiro didn't know how to describe her inner feelings. She wanted to laugh, but the ups and downs of satisfaction made her want to cry. "Idiot, it's all your fault. This leader is about to cry. You are so evil." At this time, Luo Zhiro noticed Si Chen holding her in his arms, just like every time before. Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's waist with one hand and held her little hand in his other hand. Just when Luo Zhiro was filled with shyness, Si Chen buried his face in her jade neck and said softly, "I won't be influenced by him." Si Chen's voice was very calm, so calm that Luo Zhiro could not hear the emotion in it. Luo Zhiro didn't even know whether Si Chen said these words to her or to convince himself. Actually, he might still be a little scared. Single quote. Feeling the warmth that Si Chen conveyed to her, Luo Zhiro suddenly felt very sorry for Si Chen. Luo Zhiro recalled the time after she married Si Chen. During this time, she had been enjoying Si Chen's tenderness towards her. Si Chen thought of all the things that outsiders never thought of. He would feed her, massage her, and tell her stories. However, she never gave any feedback to Si Chen. Si Chen even had to worry that she would kill him when she woke up, while also taking care of everything about her. Luo Zhiro felt extremely suffocated just thinking about the huge pressure like Mount Tai. But Si Chen is experiencing all this every day. Moreover, he has never had any dissatisfaction, and he has never revealed any negative emotions to Luo Zhiro. Si Chen was like a machine that would never let her down, everything he did was for her good. Thinking of this, Luo Zhiro felt her whole heart clench heavily. Luo Zhiro even suddenly had a thought in his mind, if I never wake up, maybe leaving me is the best destination for him. Although this idea was killed by Luo Zhiro as soon as it appeared, she also knew that perhaps the thing she least wants to face is the really right thing. Although Luo Zhiro knew that leaving her was the best choice for Si Chen, every time she thought that Si Chen would leave her, she would feel a deep sense of suffocation. Asking herself, Luo Zhiro really couldn't imagine her life without Si Chen. With these many thoughts mixed together, Luo Zhiro felt herself struggling extremely. She really wanted to hear Si Chen say in her ear that he would not leave. However, Si Chen just held her tightly and said nothing. For a moment, Luo Zhiro felt extremely uneasy. As for Si Chen, although he will not be influenced by Chu Baiquan, he will not listen to his words. Si Chen himself was actually struggling in his heart. After all, he really didn't know whether Luo Zhiro could sense the outside world, let alone what Luo Zhiro thought of him. However, his goal of awakening Luo Zhiro will not change. He once calculated that with a daily income of 10,000 points, he would be able to accumulate enough points to purchase red gold phoenix feathers in more than 2 months. At the same time, Si Chen is also preparing to break through the cave ruins realm within 2 months. This is not only to activate the power of the phoenix in the red gold phoenix feather, but also for himself. Only if you are strong enough can you cope with the many accidents that will happen in the future. To achieve this goal, this means that Si Chen must practice day and night and devote all his energy to practice. Si Chen's eye hugged Luo Zhiro tightly for a while and then placed her back on the white jade bed. "Madam, I want to practice." After whispering in Luo Zhiro's ear, Si Chen went straight back to his bed. From the beginning to the end, Luo Zhiro was unable to express her feelings to Si Chen, and Si Chen also did not express his inner thoughts to Luo Zhiro because he wanted to practice. Because of this very wonderful accident, the two did not reveal their love for each other. For a time, Luo Zhiro thought about many things. "I didn't even get a massage today, he didn't kiss me either. Is he really influenced by Chu Baiquan? But that's not true. No, Luo Zhiro, you have to believe him. He has given you all his love, how can you not believe him?" It can only be said that no matter what her cultivation level is or what position she has reached, Luo Zhiro is still an immature little girl when it comes to love between men and women. When her heart is really filled with Si Chen's every move will tug at her heartstrings invisibly. Si Chen started practicing at noon and did not do anything else during this period. During this process, Luo Zhiro always lay beside Si Chen, feeling everything about him with her heart. Now, Luo Zhiro only had one thought in her mind. "Hurry up tonight. As long as it's night, he can hold me again." Ever since Chu Baiquan left, Luo Zhiro had nothing else left in her heart. She just wanted Si Chen to hug her more and be with her all the time. At this time, Luo Zhiro is still the murderous devil she used to be, but now she looks innocently in love. Finally, while Luo Zhiro waited expectantly, Si Chen, who was in a state of trance, slowly restrained the spiritual power leaking from his body. This also means that Si Chen is about to stop practicing. Finally, Si Chen slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath. Si Chen could feel that his cultivation, which he had just broken through to the 4th level of the Yuan Shen realm, had become much more solid. "Let's continue in the evening." Si Chen slowly stood up from the bed and came to Luo Zhiro's bedside. It's coming. Sir, please give me a hug." Sensing Si Chen's arrival, Luo Zhiro couldn't wait to sit up and then stretched out her arms to Si Chen for a hug. Amid Luo Zhiro's full expectation, Si Chen bent down and held her in his arms. As before, Si Chen first fed Luo Zhiro to drink the liquid food prepared by the two guardians. When the bowl of porridge bottomed out, Si Chen let Luo Zhiro lean into his arms and began to slowly massage her arms. At the same time, Si Chen also began to whisper a little story he had made up. The candlelight in the room flickered on and off, and the shadows of Si Chen and Luo Zhiro were reflected on the wall, blending tightly together. Luo Zhiro leaned in Si Chen's arms, feeling his strong heartbeat, and her heart gradually calmed down. At this time, Luo Zhiro seemed to suddenly think of something, and then she felt her face become red and hot. "That day he came to sleep with me under my quilt without putting on his clothes. He was really shameless. If I hadn't, I'm so embarrassed. At this moment, everything seemed to be back to the past, and Luo Zhiro's mentality became much calmer. Every time Luo Zhiro thinks that Si Chen will leave her, she feels very painful in her heart. So now when Luo Zhiro thinks about this problem, she will subconsciously ignore it. She just wants to be with Si Chen every day. Soon, the moon outside the window rose to the highest point in the sky, and the daily massage gradually came to an end. At this time, Si Chen pinched Luo Zhiro's chin and slowly lowered his head. Although it had happened many times before, Luo Zhiro had to admit that every time Si Chen picked up her chin and kissed her, she would feel conquered. Luo Zhiro herself didn't know why she felt this way. She is obviously the leader of the demon cult. She should take the lead in her relationship with Si Chen. What makes Luo Zhiro even more annoyed is that she doesn't reject this feeling at all in her heart, and even has some small expectations every day. It's bad. It seems that this leader is not only being manipulated, but also being manipulated to death. The feeling of the tongues touching made Luo Zhirou's heart tremble. Just as she was about to recall it, she found that Si Chen had already let go of her. Then Luo Zhiro found that Si Chen had put her back on the pillow and covered her with the quilt. Why? I feel so rushed today. After putting Luo Zhiro back into the quilt and lying down, Si Chen returned to the floor again. As if he had thought of something, Si Chen said to the outside of the room, Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, I have some questions about cultivation that I would like to ask for advice. Oh, master, please speak. Mu Lao's voice sounded, and the figures of her and Lu Lao slowly appeared in front of Si Chen. The two guardians looked Si Chen up and down, and then Mr. Lu said with a smile, it seems that the young master has broken through to the 4th level of the Yuan Shen realm. At this speed, it really won't take long to catch up with me. Mr. Mu also nodded affirmatively and looked at Si Chen with appreciation. Si Chen asked without being arrogant, Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, I would like to ask if there are any additional conditions required to break through from the Yuanshan realm to the Cave Ruins realm. As Si Chen's realm gradually improved, he also discovered some differences from before during his practice. That is, the closer he gets to the Cave Ruins realm, the more he can feel the shackles existing in his body. Hearing Si Chen's words, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu's eyes clearly flashed with surprise. Mr. Mu even said directly, I didn't expect the young master to be able to discover this when he was at the 4th level of the Yuanshan realm. Logically speaking, it should be at the late stage of the Yuanshan realm at the earliest. Sure enough, the talents of you monsters really cannot be described by common sense. After hearing what Mr. Mu said, Si Chen frowned slightly. Mr. Mu, is there anything special about this? Faced with Si Chen's question, the two guardians did not try to hide their feelings anymore. Mr. Lu said directly, because the Cave Ruins realm is different from all the previous realms. In other words, every realm after the Yuanshan realm is different from the previous one. Quote, after reaching the late stage of the Yuanshan realm, you need to start preparing to break through the Cave Ruins realm. What preparations? Si Chen asked. Open up the cave. Mr. Mu took Mr. Lu's words. The human body contains countless mysteries, like a treasure waiting to be developed. Among them, there is the theory of 36 caves in the sky. If a monk wants to break through the Cave Ruins realm, he must open up a cave in his body. And the more caves you open up, the stronger you will be after you reach the Cave Ruins realm. The Cave Ruins realm needs to open up the cave, and the subsequent Tribulation realm requires surviving the Heavenly Tribulation. This is also the difference that Lao Lu just said. After hearing what Mr. Mu said, Si Chen gradually understood why he encountered such a shackles feeling during his cultivation. At this time, Si Chen asked again, Mr. Mu, how many holes do you need to open to successfully enter the Cave Ruins realm? Mr. Mu continued. Specifically speaking, there is no limit on the number. It's just that the more caves you open, the stronger your strength will be. How many are the strongest? Si Chen asked. Mr. Lu pointed behind Si Chen and said with a smile, it goes without saying that among the divine religions, the one who has opened the most caves is naturally the leader. The leader has opened up a total of 32. This is the most in the history of Kanglan realm. After Mr. Lu finished speaking, Luo Zhiro, who was lying on the bed, couldn't help but feel a little secretly happy. What a bad guy, this leader is so awesome. Can't you hide your admiration for me? However, just as Luo Zhiro had this idea, she heard old Lu's words again. But now that the leader is unconscious, she will definitely not be able to impart experience to you. Apart from the leader, the 4th and 7th elders of the divine sect rank second in opening 30 caves. Young master, if you need help, you can ask the 4th elder and the 7th elder for advice. No, I don't agree. Mr. Lu, what are you talking nonsense about? My leader is still here, why don't you kidnap my husband to another woman? Originally, Luo Zhiro was happily waiting for Si Chen to praise her, but Mr. Lu's next suggestion almost made Luo Zhiro stand up. Originally, they had just experienced Chu Baiquan's instigation of discord, and both she and Si Chen were relatively sensitive. In such a special period, pushing Si Chen to live with Shawan and Guanxian is no different from giving her man away. This leader does not allow it. Bad guy, your cultivation speed is already abnormal. Don't rush to break through the cave ruins realm, otherwise your foundation will be unstable. You should wait until I wake up to give you some advice. Although Luo Zhiro felt a little guilty when she thought like this, after all, there was no way that Si Chen's foundation was unstable. But she just didn't want Si Chen to leave her and be alone with Shawan and Guanxian. Unfortunately, Si Chen and others were unable to hear all of Luo Zhirou's thoughts, and Si Chen could only decide all of this alone. At this time, Si Chen said to the two guardians, Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu. I already understand the general steps. I'm still some distance away from the cave ruins realm. Let's wait until I reach the later stage of the Yuanshan realm. Well, the young master can make up his own mind. Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu also nodded. The two guardians are extremely satisfied with Si Chen and will respect all his ideas. After all, they have seen all Si Chen's performance during this period of time. After briefly telling Si Chen about their cultivation, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu left the room, leaving only Si Chen and Luo Zhiro. At this time, Si Chen came to Luo Zhirou's bedside and gently stroked her cheek with his hand. Madam, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. You directly opened up 32 caves. Humph, of course, there are many great things about this leader. You can learn from me for a lifetime. Luo Zhiro, who was originally angry because of Lu Lao's words, instantly felt her whole mood improved when she heard Si Chen's compliment. However, Si Chen's next words gave Luo Zhiro a strange feeling in her heart. It may still be some time before I can break through to the late stage of Yuanshan realm. During this time, I need to work harder. Give up all irrelevant things and concentrate on training. For some reason, when Luo Zhiro heard Si Chen's words, she suddenly had the illusion that Si Chen was particularly obsessed with breaking through the realm. Just like when Luo Zhirou's master passed away, she needed to take up the leadership of the White Feather sect alone. Why does it feel like he is suddenly obsessed with his own cultivation? Luo Zhiro has had this feeling since a day ago. She doesn't know if it's her illusion or this is the case. Why, is he afraid that I will hurt him when I wake up? The moment this idea appeared, it took deep root in Luo Zhirou's heart. Luo Zhiro felt that this idea was very likely. After all, in her opinion, Si Chen already lacked a sense of security, and now he was provoked by Chu Baiquan. This made Si Chen want to improve his level as much as possible so that he would not be hurt by her after she woke up. Bad guy, don't think like that. I won't. It's too late for me to want you to stay with me, how can I drive you away? Good night, madam, I'm going to continue practicing. At this time, Si Chen's voice came again, and Luo Zhiro could also feel Si Chen slowly walking away and returning to his bed. Even though there were countless things in her heart that she wanted to say to Si Chen, Luo Zhiro was unable to convey even a single bit of her thoughts to others. She could only watch Si Chen do things that distanced her from her due to various external factors. What makes Luo Zhiro even more afraid is whether Si Chen will no longer like her and give up on her because of this long-term pressure. After all, who would like someone who has no feedback and may kill him at any time? When she thought of this, Luo Zhiro felt anxious and distressed, and her heart could be said to be extremely tormenting. As for Si Chen, he naturally didn't think that much. He needs to focus as much energy on cultivation as possible. Only in this way can he reach the cave ruins realm as soon as possible and have the qualifications to activate the red gold phoenix feathers. At the same time, Si Chen is also a little curious about how many caves he can open up. It should not be less than Luo Zhiro, right? In this way, Si Chen and Luo Zhiro each had their own thoughts in their hearts, and neither of them explained their thoughts to the other due to various reasons. This has resulted in the current situation. Si Chen just sat there practicing, while Luo Zhiro was thinking crazily on the side. It can only be said that girls really have talents that men cannot match in terms of brainstorming and self-strategy. In the days that followed, besides feeding Luo Zhiro on time every day, massaging her, and telling her stories, Si Chen spent all his time practicing. Although what Si Chen does every day is no different from before, he is always so gentle when getting along with Luo Zhiro. But for some reason, Luo Zhiro always felt that Si Chen was a little different from before. His pursuit of realm seems to have gone a little crazy, and even the time he spends with her every day has become very short. He never even held her and slept with her again. It can be said that Luo Jiru's inner anxiety is getting stronger day by day. How she wished that time could go back to the time when she and Si Chen had just gotten married, and when Si Chen had just started practicing. Bad guy, can you stay with me more? This is the most repeated sentence in Luo Jiru's mind every day, and it is also her biggest wish during this time. Unfortunately, Si Chen could not hear her voice and did not stop practicing. After more than a month of hard training, combined with Si Chen's heaven-defying aptitude that is close to 500. Finally today, Si Chen successfully entered the 9th level of the Yuanshan realm. By this time, Si Chen could clearly feel that it was difficult for him to make any further progress in his cultivation. If you want to go further, you need to rely on what Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu said before to open up the cave. Si Chen sat cross-legged on the ground and focused on his system panel. Host, Si Chen, cultivation level, 9th level of Yuanshan realm, cave heaven, 0. Strengthening level, 230. Qualification, 479. Charisma, 60. Lucky, 100. Available points, 458,600. I already have 450,000 points, but I still have more than 300,000 points left. It's time to go to the 4th Elder and the 7th Elder tomorrow. Si Chen stood up and came to Luo Zhiro, holding her in his arms. He didn't speak, he just held her tightly and buried his face deeply into Luo Zhiro's neck. Luo Zhiro felt Si Chen's embrace with great desire. It had been a long time since she had been held by Si Chen like this. She could feel that Si Chen's realm had once again experienced a huge improvement. But all of this was obtained in exchange for the time he spent with himself. Although Luo Zhiro didn't want to stop Si Chen from getting stronger slowly, she didn't want Si Chen to spend all his energy on cultivation. At least you should set aside some free time to spend with her. At this time, Si Chen's gentle murmur sounded in Luo Zhiro's ears. Madam, I need to go to the 4th Elder and the 7th Elder tomorrow. Go, go. Anyway, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just waiting for you here. You bad guy, you have to come back on time every night. You can't forget your wife just because you were practicing. Otherwise your wife will be very angry. Luo Zhiro did not stop Si Chen like before. During this period of time, while Si Chen was dedicated to practicing every day, Luo Zhiro thought about a lot of things, and her state of mind also experienced some changes. Just like a girl who only knows how to be willful every day, after realizing that her husband is not easy, she is very afraid that her husband will leave, so she suddenly becomes virtuous. Although Luo Zhiro felt uncomfortable asking Si Chen to leave her to practice with Sha Wan and Guan Xian, Luo Zhiro also knew that this was inevitable. Anyway, he was just asking about some cultivation matters, not doing anything else. He shouldn't do anything else, right? Definitely not. Finally, after several rounds of crazy self-brainwashing, Luo Zhiro finally confirmed what she was thinking. Lying in Si Chen's arms, listening to Si Chen telling stories in a gentle voice, Luo Zhiro gradually became sleepy. While sleepy, some of Luo Zhiro's true thoughts were revealed inadvertently. Bad guy, you should still like me, right? Although I can't respond to you, I haven't stopped you from messing around. It doesn't matter to me what you do. Luo Zhiro knew that Si Chen was very insecure, but as time passed, she didn't realize that. In fact, she herself became very insecure, and she was very worried that Si Chen would leave. Especially since Si Chen is now so obsessed with improving his cultivation and no longer treats her like before, this makes Luo Zhiro think more. The next day, when the sky was getting brighter, Si Chen slowly opened the door to the room. At this time, Mr. Mu, who had been waiting at the door for a long time, slowly stepped forward. Sir, let me take you to the 2 elders. After the last assassination by the man in black, the 2 guardians of the cult at this time can be said to be extremely cautious. They were not sure whether there were any thieves in the White Feather sect at this time, so they had to do everything in detail. This time we went to Guanxian and Sha Wan with Si Chen was the best example. After hearing what Mr. Mu said, Si Chen nodded. I'm sorry to trouble Mr. Mu. Young master, you're welcome. As soon as he finished speaking, Si Chen jumped into the air and quickly followed Mr. Mu towards the east of the White Feather sect. In the room, Luo Zhuro was lying quietly on the white jade bed, and her mind could be said to be extremely chaotic. It was obvious that Sichen had just finished feeding her and massaging her. Obviously Sichen just went to Guanxian and Shaowan to ask about some cultivation matters, but Luo Zhuro still felt empty in her heart. He is gone. After being married for so long, this is the first time he has left me. Single quote. What will he, Shaowan and Shi Yun do? It should just be simple cultivation, right? You shouldn't need to hold hands when practicing. Ah, I'm so annoyed, why wasn't I the one who taught him how to practice? Flying in the sky of the White Feather God sect, Si Chen suddenly felt like he was in another world. The last time he flew over the White Feather God sect like this, he was still held up in the air by the two guardian protectors. At that time, he was just an ordinary person with no cultivation. In the next 3 months, almost no one would believe what Si Chen experienced. First, he became the husband of the leader, and his cultivation level also changed from having no cultivation level to being at the 9th level of the Soul Realm today. Not long after Si Chen and Mr. Mu flew, a mountain with lush vegetation appeared in front of them. Completely different from the other 7 main peaks of the White Feather sect, the spiritual energy on the peak in front of you appears to be gentler. At this time, Mr. Mu, who was leading the way, said, "Sir, this is the Medicine Soul Peak where the 7th Elder is. You are the most familiar with her, so come here first. I will stay outside the Medicine Soul Peak, and we will go back to the Rakshasa Peak together after the young master finishes his training. I'm tired of you, Mu Lao." After thanking Mr. Mu again, Si Chen flew straight towards the mountain peak ahead. Just when Si Chen stepped into the range of Medicine Soul Peak, a voice that was very familiar to Si Chen also sounded. "Si Chen, am I right, you actually know Medicine Soul Peak?" Hearing Sha Wan's ethereal voice, Si Chen smiled helplessly. "7th Elder, long time no see. Come in quickly." While he was talking, Si Chen saw a figure in a cyan dress appearing in front of the hall. This figure was waving to him. Si Chen didn't hesitate anymore and flew straight over there. Coming closer, Si Chen cupped his hands towards Sha Wan, 7th Elder. At this time, Sha Wan was constantly looking at Si Chen up and down, and then she asked, "Why are you here? Do you need treatment again?" I asked, "Are you doing this too often? Even if the leader can't resist, you can't be so presumptuous." Quote. Si Chen could clearly feel a bead of sweat appearing on his forehead. Ahem. Si Chen coughed quickly. 7th Elder, you misunderstood, I am not here to treat. Ang. Sha Wan nodded with satisfaction. Let me tell you, my perfect blood tonifying and yang enhancing soup cannot lose its effect just because you do it a few times. Stop it, stop it. Si Chen quickly stopped Sha Wan and said decisively, 7th Elder, I came here actually for cultivation. My health is very good. Ha, holy shit, the 9th level of the Yuanshan realm. As soon as he finished speaking, Sha Wan appeared in front of Si Chen, holding her chin with her hand and shaking her head. Quote. Seeing Sha Wan's actions, Si Chen looked at her with a question mark on his face. 7th Elder. Is there any problem? Abnormal, really a pervert? Sha Wan raised her head and looked at Si Chen. I have lived for so many years, and I have never seen anyone as perverted as you. I just thought you were praising me. Si Chen said helplessly. Sha Wan continued. So you came here to open up the cave. Seeing that Sha Wan had already stated her purpose, Si Chen nodded directly. 7th Elder, I came here just to ask you about this. Then you've found the right person. Sha Wan reached out and patted Si Chen heavily on the shoulder. She raised her head and said proudly, when it comes to things like opening up a cave, in the White Feather God's teaching, I, Sha Wan, come second, and only one person dares to say first. Don't worry, with my guidance, you will have to open up at least 25 caves. After hearing her words, Si Chen's eyes lit up. Thank you very much, Elder 7. Whatever you said, I already told you that I admire you. After saying that, Sha Wan turned around and walked towards the main hall behind her, returning a piece of green sound transmission jade to her side as she walked. Xian, Si Chen is coming to Yaohun Peak, come and play. Si Chen, I have already told you that he is not an ordinary handyman disciple. It's really unusual and worth studying. Do you think he has anything different from ordinary people, such as physical fitness or something? How do I know? You have to ask the leader. Hey, I'm still here, can you guys stop discussing so loudly? Si Chen looked at Sha Wan and Guan Xian who were standing in front of him and kept whispering, and felt that the center of his eyebrows was beating suddenly. Although Si Chen had already seen Sha Wan's carefree temperament, but now that he felt it personally again, he still couldn't help but feel deeply helpless. Si Chen even felt that the reason why Sha Wan called Guan Xian here was to gossip about him with her. There is also Guan Xian, who has always acted like a stranger and kept away from strangers. But as soon as Sha Wan got together, his whole temperament changed. Ahem. Hearing Si Chen's words, Sha Wan quickly coughed and said seriously, I call the fourth elder to come over to give you better guidance. Okay, let's get started. Seemingly knowing that Si Chen was in a hurry, Sha Wan did not continue discussing other topics, and her expression became much more serious. She looked at Si Chen and asked, should the two guardians have told you about the matters related to the opening of the cave? Si Chen nodded. Mr. Mu and Mr. Liu have already told me. That's good, Sha Wan continued. In fact, opening up a cave is tantamount to taking over the creation of heaven and earth and directly absorbing the essence of the outside world to replenish one's body. How many you can open up and how long it takes has a lot to do with your own qualifications and understanding. I estimate that with your perverted qualifications, it is very possible to catch up with the leader of the 32 caves. By then, Xian and I will probably be inferior to you. Si Chen learned about the general realm of the 7 elders of the White Feather sect through the 2 guardians. The first elder and the second elder are both at the late stage of the cave ruins realm. The first elder is the strongest and has the 9th level of the cave ruins realm. The words of other elders are distributed in the middle and early stages, that is, the 3rd to 6th levels of the cave ruins realm. Because Sha Wan and Guan Xian were not focused on cultivation, they were addicted to medical, poisonous, and mechanism formations all day long. The cultivation level is relatively the lowest, but it still looks like the 3rd level of cave ruins realm. If Si Chen can really break through the cave ruins realm on the premise of opening up 32 caves, his combat power will probably be close to that of Sha Wan and Guan Xian. Just as Si Chen was thinking in his mind, the aura around Sha Wan changed. Buzz. Dong dong dong. Amidst the shocking buzzing sounds, phantoms in the sky that shimmered with golden light began to appear around Sha Wan and above her head, and they were constantly swallowing essence. Against the golden light of these 30 caves, Sha Wan looked like a goddess descending into the world, and her whole temperament was completely different from before. Si Chen, this is the cave sky I created. It is also the key to my ability to advance to the cave ruins realm. Calm down and feel where the cave is. Si Chen sat cross-legged on the futon, gathered all his mind, and instantly entered the state of enlightenment that echoed the Great Road. Ever since Si Chen's aptitude exceeded 400, he was able to enter this state without any hindrance almost every time he practiced. In this state, he can achieve extraordinary results whether he practices or comprehends the techniques. This has become almost a normal thing for him. However, this is an extremely normal thing for Si Chen, but it is not like this in the eyes of others. Does he usually practice like this? Why does it seem to be a little different from when I was practicing? Sha Wan and Guan Xian stood in front of Si Chen, watching him just close his eyes 1 second, and then enter the state of enlightenment the next second, and what happened to the rhythm of the Great Road that only exists in saints. Although Sha Wan and Guan Xian already knew that Si Chen was very perverted, when they really experienced it personally, they couldn't help but feel a little dumbfounded. Facing Guan Xian's complicated gaze, Sha Wan could only talk about what she said to Guan Xian. Maybe he is not an ordinary handyman disciple. Quote. After continuing to observe Si Chen for a while, Sha Wan and Guan Xian withdrew their gazes. They all have the experience of opening up caves, so they know how long this matter will take. There is no point in standing here and watching all the time. Just do your own thing and come back to see Si Chen when he opens up the first cave. Xian, come with me, I have something good for you. Looking at Sha Wan's look like she was playing tricks, Guan Xian said with some confusion, what is it? This is what I have painstakingly studied for a long time and spent countless geniuses and treasures to refine. While talking, Sha Wan took out an exquisite jade bottle from her arms and handed it directly to Guan Xian. Guan Xian first looked at Sha Wan in confusion, then opened the jade bottle and put it between her nose and smelled it. The next second, Guan Xian looked at Sha Wan with a strange look on her face. Why does this thing smell like papaya? How about it, do you want one? Sha Wan said to Guan Xian very proudly, one pill will take effect. It will grow a lot overnight. Pull you down. Guan Xian glanced at Sha Wan with disgust, and then threw the jade bottle to her. Guan Xian puffed up her chest. I don't need this thing. A small movement can cause so much damage. Seeing Guan Xian walking past her with her head held high, Sha Wan's entire face fell. Are there any bullies like you? If you don't want to eat, you won't eat. Why are you using mental attacks? Looking at Sha Wan's dejected look, Guan Xian couldn't help but smile. I can't use it, so I don't eat it. But I thought that someone would need this. Who? Sha Wan looked at Guan Xian with a puzzled look. Guan Xian did not speak, but pointed at Si Chen, who was in a state of enlightenment. Sha Wan's eyes widened and she exclaimed, Si Chen. Bah! Guan Xian put one hand on her hips and hit Sha Wan on the head hard with the other hand. Not Si Chen. That's. Suddenly, Sha Wan's eyes lit up and she looked at Guan Xian with surprise. Guan Xian directly avoided her gaze and whispered, I didn't say anything. Sha Wan asked in a low voice, the leader shouldn't be able to eat, right? Who can say for sure? Guan Xian replied, anyway, it's the leader's business whether he eats it or not. It's your business whether he gives it away or not. Yeah, Sha Wan nodded, that makes sense. I have some good things to show you, come with me. With that said, Sha Wan pulled Guan Xian towards the depths of the hall. By the time the two came back, it was completely dark outside. Originally, the two of them thought of returning directly when the news came that Si Chen had opened the first cave. But they waited for a whole day without any news. Seeing that it was getting dark outside, the two of them prepared to take a look at the situation. The two of them looked at Si Chen, who was still in a state of enlightenment in the hall, and couldn't help but look at each other in confusion. It stands to reason that the first few caves are easy to open. It took us half a day to successfully open the first cave, right? Why doesn't he make any movement at all? Not even a shadow in the sky appears. Guan Xian said hesitantly. Maybe he progressed slowly because he had no one to guide him. While the two were talking, they noticed that the great Dao mark surrounding Si Chen's body was slowly dissipating. Si Chen, who had been in a state of cultivation, slowly opened his eyes. Si Chen, who emerged from the state of enlightenment, first looked at the sky outside, and then looked at Sha Wan and Guan Xian in front of him. Two elders, what's wrong, Si Chen? At this time, Sha Wan suddenly said earnestly, it doesn't matter, just slow down. Men can't be too fast. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Si Chen looked at Sha Wan in confusion. Seventh elder, what are you talking about? Create a cave. Sha Wan rolled her eyes at Si Chen. It's better to open the cave slowly. Not everyone can open the first cave in one day. Just continue working hard tomorrow. After listening to Sha Wan's words, Si Chen said hesitantly, does this mean that being able to open a cave on the first day is considered qualified? Sha Wan thought for a while and then said, this thing is not a criterion for judging how many caves a person can open up. Even if he doesn't open up a cave on the first day, don't worry too much. No. Si Chen waved his hand. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? Si Chen raised his eyebrows, and the aura around him changed drastically in an instant. Buzz. Dong dong dong. Incomparably dazzling golden light began to rush out from the cracks around him, ripples appeared in the space, and caves that had already been opened completely began to appear in various directions around Si Chen. Soon, a total of 13 cave sky shadows appeared around Si Chen's body. At the same time, Si Chen's voice also sounded faintly in the ears of Sha Wan and Guan Xian. I mean, I opened 13 in one day, what kind of level is that? Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Quote dot 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 quote. At this moment, Sha Wan and Guan Xian had a common thought in their hearts. Sure enough, the perverted world can never be judged by common sense. Just when we were worried that you couldn't open a single cave, you turned around and told us that you had opened 13. Is there anyone who can hit people like you? Finally, after a long period of silence, Guan Xian said to Si Chen, "It's not bad. There is still room for further growth." Si Chen nodded slowly and smiled at Sha Wan and Guan Xian. "Excuse me, two elders." "It's okay, no problem." Afterwards, Si Chen directly asked Sha Wan and Guan Xian to leave. He couldn't stay with Sha Wan for a long time. After all, he had to massage Luo Jiru's body and sign in every day. When Si Chen's figure gradually faded away, Sha Wan, who had been in self-doubt, came back to her senses. She looked at Guan Xian beside her and said quietly, "Now I finally know the meaning of the phrase, one family does not enter the same house. No wonder he can become a couple with the leader. He is more perverted than the leader." In the past, Guan Xian always maintained a wait-and-see attitude towards Sha Wan's wild ideas. But this time, Guan Xian nodded heavily. "You were right. On Rakshasa Peak, in the leader's room. At this time, Luo Zhiro was lying on the bed and focused all her energy on the door of the room. She had stayed in this state for a whole day, just to be able to sense Si Chen as soon as he came back. Why doesn't this bad guy come back? It's been a day. Will he not come back? Is he going to live with Sha Wan Xian? When thinking of this, Luo Jiru's mind unconsciously recalled the scene of a man with a very blurry face living with Sha Wang Guan Xian. After all, Sha Wan and Guan Xian are both extremely beautiful, and the most important thing is that they can give feedback to Si Chen, talk to Si Chen, and... Under this premise, Luo Jiro is really worried that Si Chen will no longer like her after experiencing a better life. No, I am your wife. Bad guy, come back quickly. Your wife has been waiting for you. No, opening up a cave is an extremely serious matter. He must still be practicing, so he came back a little late. Yes, that must be the case. He didn't do anything else with Sha Wan Xian. Squeak. Just as Luo Jiro continued to hypnotize herself in her mind, the sound of the door being opened suddenly sounded in her ears. Immediately afterwards, Luo Jiro noticed a figure flying towards her quickly. Then Luo Jiro found that she was held in a pair of strong arms, and a familiar manly scent came from her nose. Luo Jiro breathed a long sigh of relief. He's back, he's finally back. It scared me to death. Si Chen looked at the delicate face in his arms and couldn't help but smile fondly. He whispered in Luo Jiru's ear, "Madam, I haven't seen you for a day. Do you miss your husband?" Being held in Si Chen's arms, although Luo Jiru's heart was about to overflow with joy, she still thought arrogantly. "You still know how to come back. Humph, I don't miss you. I never thought about you. Who told you to come back so late? I'm so angry with you. Would you like a kiss, madam?" "Don't want." "Ah, slow down, bad guy, I can't breathe." Just when Luo Jiro was almost completely immersed in this rich sense of happiness, and her whole body became dizzy, Si Chen let go of the hand holding her chin. "You were really evil. You bullied me when I couldn't move. But this feels so good." When Si Chen came back from Sha Wan's place, it was already very late. In order to prevent Luo Jiro from going hungry, Si Chen quickly rushed back to Raksha Peak. After a long kiss, Si Chen held Luo Jiro in his arms and fed her. At the same time, Si Chen was also whispering to Luo Jiro about today's experience. "Madam, I opened up 13 caves in one day today. Isn't that amazing? Well, you are very powerful, but I won't admit that you are powerful. Because I didn't teach you. But, if you can hold me to sleep tonight, then I will admit that you are awesome." Not great at all. Luo Jiro lay on the bed, feeling bad all over. Originally, she was thinking that Si Chen and she had not seen each other for a day, and Si Chen had already been practicing all day. After finally coming back at night, why don't you hold her and sleep with her? However, Si Chen was like a piece of wood and had no idea about this at all. After Si Chen finished massaging her, he went directly back to his bed and continued to open up the cave. He didn't even say a few words. "I've been waiting for you all day, and it's hard to wait for you to come back, but you're still in such a hurry. You are so mean." The next day, Si Chen went directly to Medicine Soul Peak where Sha Wan was at dawn. Si Chen could clearly sense that as the number of caves he opened gradually increased, the subsequent difficulty would become countless times greater than before. I learned from the two cult leaders and guardians that they had spent several years in the Yuanshan realm. Only then did he develop a satisfactory number of caves and successfully break through to the cave ruins realm. Si Chen can't wait so long. The last attack by the men in black had alerted Si Chen. It would be difficult for him to survive solely relying on the protection of the two guardians. Whether it's for himself or Luo Zhiro, he must do it as soon as possible. To achieve his goal, Si Chen must squeeze out as much time as possible. At the end of the day, Si Chen opened up 4 caves again. When the sky darkened, Si Chen asked Shawan and Guan Xian to leave. Return to Rakshasa Peak to feed Luo Zhiro and massage her body. Si Chen's daily schedule is very full and time is tight. But he never complained to Luo Zhiro. Although he hadn't slept a wink for more than 2 months, Si Chen never revealed any negative emotions to Luo Zhiro. He is still as gentle as before. However, his time with Luo Zhiro became very short, and he often became distracted when telling stories. Time passed like this day by day, and the number of Si Chen's caves was growing steadily. When the number of Si Chen's caves reached 27, his growth rate had become very slow. Generally, all the time from morning to night is used to open up caves, and only one can be opened. At this time, there is still half a month left before Si Chen's original goal of 2 months. His points also reached 678,600, still short of 130,000. On this day, after a day of practice, Si Chen and Mr. Mew returned to Rakshasa Peak together. It was also at this time that the two saw a familiar figure. Chu Baiquan. This time Chu Baiquan did not come to Rakshasa Peak alone, there was a tall woman beside him. Seeing this scene, Si Chen frowned, and then came to the room with Mr. Mew. The first time he saw Si Chen, Chu Baiquan laughed and said, "Sir, long time no see." Si Chen nodded. "Great Elder, what are you doing?" "Of course I'm here to see the leader." From Si Chen's appearance to now, Chu Baiquan's eyes have never left Si Chen. When he noticed that Si Chen had reached the 9th level of Yuanshan realm, the greed in his eyes was almost uncontrollable. After chatting for a few words, Si Chen and others entered the room. Si Chen and Chu Baiquan also looked at Luo Zhiro on the bed. It seems that the leader's complexion is really getting better day by day. Si Chen said in a calm tone, "Excuse me, the Great Elder has been thinking about me." "Where is it? By the way, look at my memory, I even forgot to introduce it." Chu Baiquan took his eyes away from Luo Zhiro and looked at Si Chen in front of him again. He took the hand of the woman on the side and said to Si Chen, "Sir, this is what I told you last time, one of my core disciples on the peak, Xie Yao. She has heard some of the young master's deeds a long time ago, and has been begging me to bring her to get to know him. Yaoer, please say hello to the young master quickly." After Chu Baiquan finished speaking, Xie Yao bowed to Si Chen with sparkling eyes, "I have met the young master." At this time, Xie Yao was wearing a long black dress with long black hair hanging casually behind her. With a little light makeup, her face was very charming. However, facing Xie Yao's salute, Si Chen's expression did not change at all. He just nodded slightly in return. He even directly issued an eviction order. "Great Elder, the leader is in very good condition now, but he still cannot be disturbed too much." "Of course I know this." Chu Baiquan waved his hand in an unusually free and easy manner. "I just brought Yaoer here to get to know the young master today. Now that my goal has been achieved, it's time to leave." But, just when Si Chen was surprised by Chu Baiquan's words, Chu Baiquan said again, "Sir, the leader's complexion has completely recovered a month ago, why doesn't he wake up now?" Si Chen naturally had no reason to tell Chu Baiquan the reason. He just asked in a calm tone, "Great Elder, do you have any advice?" "Haha, it's just my guess." Chu Baiquan looked into Si Chen's eyes and said earnestly, "I'm afraid that no matter how well the leader's complexion recovers, he still won't be able to wake up. When the time comes, it will be hard for you, young master." With the young master's qualifications to break through to the 9th level of the Yuanshan realm in just a few months, he is destined to shine no matter where he is placed. But now he can only stay by the leader's side, unable to leave or receive any emotional feedback. Quote, "Haha, if it were anyone else, I'm afraid I really wouldn't be able to bear this kind of widowhood. Chu Baikuan's tone was very casual, as if he was chatting about family matters. But everyone in the room knew that he said the most alienating words in the most casual tone. Facing Chu Baikuan's words, Si Chen still didn't have any refutation, he just smiled softly. Thank you, great elder, for your concern. It should be right. We are all men, and I feel unfortunate for the young master. Chu Baikuan continued. Master, I will take Yaoer back to Yinghui Peak first. Look at Yaoer's appearance, she really wants to stay with the master for a while. But it's really getting late, young master, you should concentrate on your cultivation. When the young master comes to visit Yinghui Peak tomorrow, it won't be too late to have a chat with Yaoer. As he spoke, Xie Yao, who was beside Chu Baikuan, also had a shy look in his eyes. She timidly said to Si Chen, Master, I'll take my leave first. Si Chen smiled and nodded to Chu Baikuan. Elder, I believe it won't be long before I come to your door. Ha 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 ha. After hearing Si Chen's words, Chu Baikuan could hardly contain the joy on his face. Then I will be waiting for the young master to arrive on the Yinghui Peak. After that, Chu Baikuan took Xie Yao and left Ruxia Peak, leaving only Si Chen and Luo Zhiro in the room. Slowly closing the door to the room, there was no movement in Si Chen's eyes. Regarding Chu Baikuan's words to sow discord, Si Chen just wanted to say, you know nothing. Am I going to give up my precious lady to sign in with you, a stinky old man? Although Chu Baikuan's identity is not much different from that of Luo Zhiro, the leader of the White Feather sect, there is more than just identity required for signing in. There is still a check in distance. Do you want to have love with an old man? As soon as this thought came up, Si Chen felt a chill. Si Chen's thoughts were not affected in the slightest by Chu Baikuan. As usual, he came to Luo Zhiro and held her in his arms. In Si Chen's opinion, even though Luo Zhiro could not give him any response, even though Luo Zhiro would probably expel him mercilessly after waking up. But Si Chen would still choose to wake her up, not only because she is Si Chen's wife, but also because of the strange obsession in her heart. Si Chen knew very well that if it weren't for Luo Zhiro, he would still be a handyman disciple in front of the mountain gate of the White Feather God sect. For Si Chen, isn't Luo Zhiro the ray of light that illuminates his dark life? Si Chen didn't know what others would do if this happened to others, but Si Chen would choose to stay with Luo Zhiro without hesitation. However, although Si Chen himself will not be affected by Chu Baikuan in any way, this does not mean that Luo Zhiro will not. Just now, Luo Zhiro, who had been waiting for Si Chen to come home, heard the sound of the room door opening. She also heard all the conversations between Chu Baikuan and Si Chen. If it were in the past, Luo Zhiro would definitely not be affected by Chu Baikuan in any way. After all, she clearly knew Chu Baikuan's true purpose. But now, after experiencing so many things, Luo Zhiro really thinks too much. When she heard what Chu Baikuan said, young master should have shined in other places, but now he can only live here. Luo Zhiro only felt that her heart was hit hard. As Si Chen's pillow, Luo Zhiro knows Si Chen's talent better than anyone else. Maybe she could sneer at everything else Chu Baikuan said, but Luo Zhiro had to admit that what he just said was the truth. During this period of time, Si Chen's unconditional tenderness towards Luo Zhiro had gradually made her intoxicated. This made her subconsciously ignore one thing: Si Chen is also a living person, and he also needs response and affirmation. Obviously, Luo Zhiro now has no way to give Si Chen these things. Luo Zhiro didn't even know when she would wake up. May never wake up. If she really can't wake up, does Si Chen really want to take care of her by her bedside for the rest of her life? As the saying goes, there is no filial son before a long-term illness, not to mention that Si Chen and she were just a couple who had never spoken a word and had no real relationship. Luo Zhiro had to admit that she had selfish motives. She hoped that Si Chen could always be by her side. She simply couldn't leave Si Chen. However, she knew that this was unfair to Si Chen. Under this premise, combined with Si Chen's current situation of only focusing on cultivation all day long, an idea suddenly popped up in Luo Zhirou's mind. I was the one who dragged him down. Luo Zhiro desperately wanted to get Si Chen's answer. Miss Sir, are you leaving me? By this time, Si Chen had already finished massaging Luo Zhiru's body, and he put her back on the white jade bed again. He still didn't choose to sleep with her in his arms because he wanted to practice. That night, the two of them were destined to have no sleep. The days after that continued as usual. Si Chen is still running around every day to break through the cave ruins realm, and his points have finally reached 800,000. 32. Although Sha Wan and Guan Xian had long expected that the number of caves opened by Si Chen would definitely catch up with Luo Zhiro. But when this moment really came, the two of them couldn't help but exclaimed. At this time, the entire Medicine Soul Peak was protected by the large formation arranged by Guan Xian. But even so, the huge energy fluctuations when Si Chen opened the cave were still impacting these formations. Sha Wan and Guan Xian were suspended in the sky on Medicine Soul Peak, looking helplessly below. Sha Wan was even more annoyed and said, "How could this guy make so much noise when he opened 32 caves? My Medicine Soul Peak will be destroyed by him." 33. Just when Sha Wan was feeling annoyed by Si Chen's actions, Guan Xian's sudden words left Sha Wan speechless. At this time, neither Sha Wan nor Guan Xian spoke anymore. He just hung quietly in the air and looked at Si Chen below. 33, 34, 35. Seeing that Si Chen had no intention of stopping, Sha Wan suddenly said, "The entire Kanglan world has never heard of anyone being able to open up 36 caves." Guan Xian shook her head, "Look down." At this time, it was completely dark outside. But the dazzling golden light emitted by Si Chen's 35 caves completely illuminated the entire Medicine Soul Peak. Below, Si Chen sat cross-legged on a futon. Not even close. Si Chen could clearly sense it, but it was just a little bit off. Just today, Si Chen looked at the points that were already approaching 800,000. He added all the attribute points accumulated during this period to his qualifications at once. And at the moment when Si Chen's aptitude completely exceeded 600, Si Chen felt that his spiritual platform became extremely empty. He can even clearly perceive the specific locations of his 36 caves. Under this situation, Si Chen no longer suppressed his absorption of the surrounding spiritual energy. Amid the violent roar, all the caves opened by Si Chen began to move together and began to frantically absorb the essence of heaven and earth on Medicine Soul Peak. Then Si Chen used these powers to crazily attack all the remaining caves. Time passed quickly, and soon the moon in the sky had risen to its highest altitude. The movement on Medicine Soul Peak still did not stop, and the violent energy impact even made the entire White Feather God sect turn their attention. Buzz. Suddenly, a harsh buzzing sound sounded throughout the Medicine Soul Peak. A majestic and extreme suction force came from the entire Medicine Soul Peak. Under the influence of this suction force, a spiritual energy storm centered on Si Chen suddenly took shape, frantically absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy. In the spiritual energy storm, all the caves surrounding Si Chen's body converged toward the top of Si Chen's head. Boom! 35 caves suddenly collided together and began to devour each other crazily. During this process, the aura in Si Chen's body completely changed. Both Sha Wan and Guan Xian knew that it was the aura of the Cave Ruins realm. But Si Chen's Cave Ruins realm is much stronger than them. After an unknown amount of time, all the caves surrounding Si Chen's body had disappeared. Instead, there was a majestic cave-like phantom-like an ancient heaven suspended above Si Chen's head. At this time, the 36th and only remaining cave Sky Shadow was suspended in the sky above Medicine Soul Peak. The essence of heaven and earth, as magnificent as a waterfall, flowed out of the cave and went straight into Si Chen's body below. Si Chen's cultivation has completely advanced to the Cave Ruins realm. This is the 36th cave. At this time, Sha Wan and Guan Xian in the sky had already fallen into a state of sluggishness. And just when the two of them recovered from their sluggish state and were ready to experience the power of Si Chen's 36 caves, the cave-like shadow suspended in the sky suddenly disappeared. Immediately afterwards, in the dull gazes of Sha Wan and Guan Xian, Si Chen's figure flashed past them. Dissipating with Si Chen's figure were the last words he said before leaving. "My wife must be impatient, see you two elders. A little polite, but not much. Sha Wan and Guan Xian, you are a maniac about doting on your wife, aren't you?" In the room, Luo Zhiro fell into a deep sense of loss. My husband didn't come back today. Why, even though I came back very late in the past, I would still come back. Ever since Si Chen left in the morning, Luo Zhiro had been waiting for Si Chen to come back. She waited and waited, from morning until midnight, but there was still no sign of Si Chen. After the previous events, Luo Zhiro felt extremely insecure. Luo Zhiro was originally very afraid that Si Chen would leave her completely because he disliked her. Si Chen stayed up all night today. This also made Luo Zhiro feel abandoned for an instant. Yeah, after all, I can't give him anything, and I will even slowly become a burden to him. Although Luo Zhiro always thought that Si Chen might have a better future after abandoning him. But when she really imagined being abandoned by Si Chen, Luo Zhiro felt a heartache. In this huge loss, Luo Zhiro only felt that the abyss she was in at this time was so cold. Without the tenderness Si Chen gave her, Luo Zhiro felt that she had become very lonely. Time passed like this, and Luo Zhiro never waited for Si Chen to come back. Just when Luo Zhiro thought Si Chen would not come back today, the door to the room was quickly pushed open by a figure. After breaking through the cave ruins realm based on the 36 caves, Si Chen's speed at this time can be said to be extremely fast. After closing the door of the room, Si Chen quickly came to Luo Zhirou's bedside. I'm sorry, madam, because I am in the final stage of opening up the cave, so I have been delayed for a while. As Si Chen said this, he picked up Luo Zhiro and let her lean into his arms. It's okay, sir. Hearing Si Chen's words again and being held in his arms again, Luo Zhiro felt very aggrieved. She really likes Si Chen, and she really doesn't want Si Chen to leave her. But the current situation made her seem so powerless. She couldn't even tell whether Si Chen still liked her or not. Si Chen sighed. Looking at Luo Zhirou's delicate face like a peerless goddess in his arms, Si Chen suddenly felt worried about gains and losses. After this period of intense training, Si Chen successfully broke through to the cave ruins realm. He is qualified to activate the red gold phoenix feather, and his points have reached 798,600 points. Si Chen only needed to sign in once more and he could buy the sacred artifact that could cause chaos in the outside world. But at this moment, Si Chen couldn't bring himself to feel happy at all. Even the joy that he had just opened 36 caves was completely washed away at this moment. He could indeed purchase the red gold phoenix feather, and he could also activate the power in it and dispel the taboo on Luo Zhirou's soul. But what happens after that? What happens after Luo Zhiro wakes up? As someone who had touched her body, as a husband who appeared out of thin air, Si Chen can predict his own ending without even thinking. After living in this small room with Luo Zhiro for so long, Si Chen really didn't want to leave like this. If possible, Si Chen even imagined that Luo Zhiro could fall in love with him the first time he woke up. But Si Chen knew that the chance of such a thing happening was really pitiful. It's not even as likely as him being pinched to death by Luo Zhiro. When that time comes, where should Si Chen go? Well, this is the first time that Si Chen has let out such a disappointed sigh in the past few months since he and Luo Zhiro got married. Why did he sigh? Hearing Si Chen's sigh, Luo Zhiro was suddenly stunned. After being married for so long, Si Chen has never revealed any negative emotions to her, and he has never even said harsh words to her. But now, Si Chen sighed. Perhaps she is also helpless to have a burdensome wife like me. Maybe he also wants a better girl. But my husband, I really don't want you to leave. I will wake up soon, I will really wake up soon. Don't leave. Combined with the fact that Si Chen was addicted to cultivation and stopped talking to her, and what Chu Baiquan said later. Coupled with Si Chen's unprecedented sigh just now, Luo Zhiro really felt that Si Chen still disliked her. She felt that she had become a burden to Si Chen. Zhiro, oh Zhiro, you are really going to kill your husband. At this moment, Si Chen suddenly stretched out his hands and began to squeeze Luo Zhirou's face viciously. At the same time, he murmured, how wonderful it would be if you could fall in love with me the first time you wake up. I really don't want to leave here, I really don't want to be driven away by you. Single quote ? Single quote. Hey, no. Hearing Si Chen's words and feeling his somewhat angry behavior, Luo Zhiro was suddenly stunned. What's going on? It unfolds in ways I never imagined. My husband just said, if I could fall in love with him the first time I wake up. He also said he didn't want to leave. Then doesn't this mean? My husband, he doesn't dislike me. He still likes me. In an instant, Luo Zhiro felt a huge sense of satisfaction and happiness fill her heart. The huge gap from hell to heaven even gave Luo Zhiro an unreal feeling. My husband, he likes me. He doesn't dislike me. He doesn't want to leave me. Luo Zhiro kept repeating Si Chen's words just now in her mind, and then she laughed in her heart. What do I mean by falling in love with you the first time I wake up? You are such a bad guy. Am I going to forget you now and love you all over again? You are so stupid, I will bite you to death. I'll drive you away, don't even think about it. Before I am satisfied, you are not allowed to go anywhere, just stay here. Smiling, Luo Zhiro suddenly felt like crying. During this period of time, she had really accumulated too much fear and grievance in her heart. Now, in this quiet night, Si Chen finally hugged her and told her his true feelings. The huge gap even made her, a powerful person in the tribulation realm, unable to bear it. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Bad guy, I'm going to fall in love with you when I open my eyes, but I don't even know what you look like. But, it doesn't matter if you are ugly, we complement each other very well. For Luo Zhiro, Si Chen has become an indispensable part of her heart. When she knew that Si Chen did not dislike her now, but was still looking forward to Luo Zhiro falling in love with him as soon as she woke up. Luo Zhiro felt that the haze accumulated in her heart during this period had been swept away. Her world became warm again. However, although Luo Zhiro knew Si Chen's intentions, she also recognized Si Chen as her husband. However, Si Chen never knew what Luo Zhiro was thinking. He was still immersed in a huge struggle. Madam, if after you wake up, I apply to stay in the White Feather cult, will you agree? As if he was afraid that Luo Zhiro would disagree, Si Chen hurriedly said, I just broke through the cave ruins realm based on the foundation of 36 caves. If I can become your protector, that is really the best ending I can think of. Bad guy, what are you talking about? Hearing Si Chen's words, Luo Zhiro suddenly realized that Si Chen could not know what she was thinking. Listening to his disappointed tone and heart-wrenching words, Luo Zhiro felt that the desire in her heart to hug Si Chen had reached its extreme at this moment. My husband, don't think too much, I won't let you leave. It's too late for me to like you, so how can I let you leave me? The 36 caves have been opened, and they are probably going to be overtaken by those big forces. Why did I become so unconfident in your mouth? I still want to be held by you to sleep. While thinking about it, Luo Zhiro felt a hint of shyness in her heart. You've taken advantage of me so many times and I haven't taken advantage of you yet, so you can't just leave. In the room, Si Chen held Luo Zhiro tightly in his arms, put his chin on her shoulder and whispered softly. He only needs to complete the sign in as usual, and his points will reach 800,000. At that time, Si Chen will be able to completely awaken Luo Zhiro. However, Si Chen hesitated. An idea even came to Si Chen's mind. If I don't have to wait for a while before waking up my wife, I can also accumulate some points first. Si Chen is also a human being, and as a human being he will have selfish motives. He really wanted to sign in with Luo Zhiro all the time. However, Si Chen killed this idea as soon as it came up. No matter what the outcome was, Si Chen didn't want Luo Zhiro to continue to be trapped in that dark abyss. After spending a long time in this struggling emotion, Si Chen finally slowly raised his head. He held Luo Zhiro tightly in his arms, pinched her chin and kissed her deeply. Perhaps it was because this kiss would be the last kiss between Si Chen and Luo Zhiro. This kiss was really long. Luo Zhiro could even feel Si Chen's heavy breathing and his arms tightly holding her waist. Ding! Congratulations to the host for signing in from the mouth of Luo Zhiro, the leader of the White Feather God sect in the late stage of the Tribulation Realm. He received 10,000 points and an attribute gift pack luxury *1. Today's discounted items. Holy level lower grade red gold phoenix feather, locked price, 1 million points, 20% off. Saint level middle grade Tongtian Janmu spear, price, 300 W points, 30% off. The sacred weapon spear made from the branches of the world tree contains the power of creation of the emperor-level heavenly material and earthly treasure world tree, and is indestructible. Heaven-level top grade, soul flying, priced at 100,000 points, 30% off. Heaven-level movement technique, you can use your soul to teleport and travel thousands of miles in an instant. Quote. To be honest, looking at the discounted products refreshed by the system today, Si Chen was really moved. Saint-level mid-grade spear, priced at 3 million points, with a 30% discount. Si Chen now has 800,000 points in his hand, and he only needs to accumulate them for 10 more days to get them. But if he does this, it means that Luo Zhiro will continue to be in this state for several months. System, are you kidding me? Ding, would you like to ask the host if you want to buy the red gold phoenix feather? Nonsense, buy it. Hurry up and close the system interface. Don't make me look angry. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully purchasing the holy level low-grade red gold phoenix feathers. 800,000 points will be deducted, and the remaining points will be 8,600. The system beep sounded, and the points that Si Chen had worked so hard to accumulate for several months were completely reduced at this moment. This also means that he will never have a chance with Tongtian Jianmu Spear. However, he finally bought the hope of awakening Luo Zhiro. Holding Luo Zhiro in one hand, Si Chen's other hand began to slowly shine with a fiery red light. A few breaths later, an object like a phoenix feather appeared in Si Chen's hand. Perhaps because the power of the phoenix has not yet been activated, the aura emitted by the red gold phoenix feathers is not particularly scary at this time. But holding it at such a close distance, Si Chen could still feel the majestic and extreme pressure of the holy weapon contained in it. Self-defense, destroy all evils, and come back to life. Looking at the red gold phoenix feather in his hand, Si Chen gently stroked Luo Zhirou's long hair. Madam, now I really have to lose all my pants to you. What is that thing he is holding in his hand, and why does it have such an amazing aura? The moment the red gold phoenix feather appeared, Luo Zhiro noticed the aura contained in it. After all, she is a powerful person in the tribulation realm, and what she has seen and heard is much richer than Si Chen. Luo Zhiro was even convinced that the thing in Si Chen's hand would be extremely rare even if it were placed in the entire Kanglan world. Combined with what he just said, Luo Zhiro couldn't help but wonder what he was going to do. Immediately afterwards, Luo Zhiro suddenly discovered that Si Chen had picked her up. Sir, what are you going to do? In the room, Si Chen picked up Luo Zhiro from the bed and made her sit up. At this time, Luo Zhirou's green hair naturally hung down to her waist. Si Chen first looked at the red gold phoenix feather in his hand, and then gently held Luo Zhirou's hair. At the same time, Si Chen's gentle voice also sounded in Luo Zhirou's ears. Madam, I really never thought that there would be a day in my life when I would put hairpins on girls. Si Chen used the sacred red gold phoenix feather in his hand as a hairpin and gently entwined Luo Zhirou's black hair. His movements were light and a little clumsy. At this moment, feeling Si Chen's clumsy movements and listening to his gentle words, Luo Zhiro gradually became a little crazy. Just like Si Chen had never given a girl a hairpin, Luo Zhiro had never been given a hairpin by anyone else. In this quiet night, in this small room, a man and woman who love each other may soon taste the bitterness of going in both directions but never intersecting. Chapter 51. After a while, Si Chen finally used the red gold phoenix feather to pull up Luo Zhirou's hair. Although she is a little unskilled, maybe it is because Luo Zhiro is versatile with various hairstyles. At this moment, against the backdrop of the red gold phoenix feathers, Luo Zhiro was as holy and flawless as the goddess of the 9 heavens. Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's shoulders face to face, looked at her flawless body at this moment, and smiled softly. His smile is very complicated and contains many emotions. Happy, helpless, lost, struggle. While smiling, the aura coming from Si Chen's body began to rise rapidly. The violent power crazily impacted everything around him, but for Luo Zhiro who was in it, it was like a breeze blowing on his face. Under the impact of Si Chen's violent force, the whole room began to shake continuously. At this time, Si Chen's calm voice also spread outside the room. Mr. Mu, Mr. Liu, seal Rakshasa Peak. Yes, sir. With almost no hesitation, countless large formations appeared on Rakshasa Peak instantly. Mu Lao and Lu Lao soared into the sky, and the power of the late stage of the cave ruins realm suddenly spread out, covering the entire Rakshasa Peak. And just when Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu had fully awakened their cultivation, they suddenly noticed an aura that could fundamentally threaten them. This aura came from the room where Si Chen and Luo Zhiro were. This is, Old Lu, this is the miracle I want you to see. A miracle that only exists in the young master. When Mr. Mu's voice fell, a celestial shadow like the blazing sun suddenly appeared in the sky above Rakshasa Peak. And just when this phantom appeared in the sky above Rakshasa Peak, Mr. Lu fell into a sluggish state. This is, a phantom in the cave sky. That's right, and it's an ancient miracle that combines 36 caves and heavens. As he spoke, the phantom suspended in the sky became extremely solid at this moment. The essence of heaven and earth, which was so rich that it almost condensed into substance, spewed out from this cave and fell straight into the room below. In the room, Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's waist with one hand, and used the other hand to activate the spiritual power that filled the sky. Pour directly into the red gold phoenix feathers. Instilled by Si Chen's spiritual power, which was far beyond the ordinary cave ruins realm, the red gold phoenix feather began to shine with a faint fiery red light. And as time goes by, this light is becoming more intense, and the pressure of the holy weapon coming from the red gold phoenix feather is becoming more and more obvious. But at the center of all these auras, Luo Zhiro was extremely confused. Ms. Sir, what are you doing? Madam, you must also be curious about why I have been practicing like crazy during this period, right? Si Chen said dotingly and gently, because if you want to awaken the power in the red golden phoenix feather, you must have the cultivation level of the cave ruins realm. Single quote exclamation mark single quote. Si Chen still instilled spiritual power into the red gold phoenix feathers. I don't know how long passed like this, but when Si Chen felt an obvious sense of emptiness in his body. The phoenix divine power in the red gold phoenix feather is finally fully activated at this moment. When the red gold phoenix feather was fully awakened, a holy fiery red light came out from it and gradually enveloped Luo Zhirou's entire body. Taking a long breath, Si Chen looked at Luo Zhirou, who was already wrapped in red light, with an extremely complicated look in his eyes. Perhaps, by this time tomorrow, I will no longer be in the white feather god sect. Si Chen carried Luo Zhirou back to the white jade bed and covered her with the quilt. Si Chen gently pinched Luo Zhirou's nose. Madam, good night. Si Chen didn't say anything more, but went straight back to the bed where he had slept for several months. Lying on the floor, Si Chen looked at the roof with dull eyes. He could clearly sense that the power in the red gold phoenix feather was erasing the ominous taboo in Luo Zhirou's soul. Si Chen didn't know how long this process would last. Maybe an hour, maybe a day, maybe a month. Shaking his head hard, Si Chen felt that his mind was extremely confused. Maybe it's because I want to escape this kind of suffering in my heart. In this kind of chaotic and complicated emotions. Si Chen, who was already short of spiritual power in his body, fell into a deep sleep. On the other side, on the white jade bed, Luo Zhirou, who was in the red light, was completely stunned at this moment. She could clearly feel that the black energy clinging to her soul like a tarsal maggot was being quickly erased. Luo Zhirou knew very well what this meant. She is about to wake up. This is not fake, this is happening. And all of this was done for her by her husband, Si Chen. At the same time, Luo Zhirou finally understood why Si Chen practiced so crazily without eating or sleeping some time ago. All this is for her. At this moment, Luo Zhirou suddenly felt that her suspicion of Si Chen some time ago was so ridiculous. Luo Zhirou, he tries his best to be good to you, but you don't do anything, yet you are still doubting his love for you. At the same time, Luo Zhirou was also frightened by Si Chen's actions just now. Luo Zhirou could clearly sense that Si Chen was not practicing, which meant that he was asleep. But he didn't sleep next to her, nor did he hold her. Even the good night just sounded like a farewell. Mr. Sir, come back soon. Luo Zhirou's love for Si Chen almost broke through the sky. She could be said to be extremely excited now. She had countless things to say to Si Chen in her heart. She wanted to tell Si Chen that she would never drive him away, and she wanted him to stay with her forever. Not separated for a second. Hurry up, let me wake up. In the past, my husband protected me, but this time it's my turn to protect my husband. Time passed like this little by little, and the red light wrapping Luo Jiru's body gradually became thinner. She was about to wake up. The night was already deep, and Si Chen fell into a deep sleep full of thoughts. At this time, the room where Si Chen and Luo Jiro were was extremely silent. At this time, Luo Jiru's long eyelashes, which had been silent for several months, suddenly trembled a few times. Then, Luo Jiru's smart eyes slowly opened. Everything in the room came into view again. Luo Jiro raised her hand and waved it in front of her in a dreamy manner. When she was finally sure that she was not dreaming and had really woken up, Luo Jiro quickly sat up from the bed. Without any hesitation, Luo Jiru's head quickly turned to a certain direction in the room. Immediately afterwards, a very simple floor covering came into view. On the floor, there was a man sleeping deeply with a frown on his face. To be honest, when Luo Jiro was unconscious, she had imagined more than once what her husband would look like. She had thought that no matter whether her husband was handsome or ordinary, whether his talent was excellent or ordinary, she would always love him. But now, Luo Jiro really woke up, and she really saw the husband who haunted her in her dreams. At this moment, Luo Jiro felt that the most perfect image she had ever imagined could not compare with Si Chen at this moment. Unparalleled talent that far exceeds that of the world, a temperament and face like an immortal in the sky, and the powerful strength to advance to the cave ruins realm in a few months. If you single out one of these advantages, it can be regarded as extremely excellent. But her husband, Luo Jiro, perfectly combines all these advantages into one body. When she thought of this, Luo Jiro, who was on the bed, laughed crazily. If her smile were seen in the eyes of other members of the White Feather God sect, they would probably be so shocked that their eyes would pop out. Because Luo Jiro had never smiled before, and her whole body was filled with an iceberg-like aura. But in front of Si Chen, she subconsciously showed her little girl side. However, seeing Si Chen sleeping on the simple floor with a frown on his face, Luo Jiru's eyes flashed with a strong look of distress. Jumping off the white jade bed, Luo Jiro first looked in the mirror at the hair that Si Chen had put up for her. Then he tiptoed to Si Chen's side. Squatting next to Si Chen, looking at his brows that were still furrowed in his sleep, Luo Jiro pouted in dissatisfaction. Bad guy, your wife hasn't said anything yet, but you are making random assumptions about me. While speaking, Luo Jiro stretched out her slender fingers and gently rubbed Si Chen's frown. Then, Luo Jiro gently pulled open a corner of Si Chen's quilt, leaned down furtively. First he put his feet into Si Chen's quilt, and then his whole body got into Si Chen's arms. Huddled in Si Chen's bed, smelling the manly scent that intoxicated her, Luo Jiro had never felt so satisfied. Bad guy, it's been a long time since I hugged your wife and slept together. Humph, if you don't hold me to sleep, then I will hold you to sleep. Heading into Si Chen's arms, Luo Jiro hugged one of Si Chen's arms tightly, and then closed her eyes. But soon, Luo Jiro, who had just closed her eyes, opened them again. She raised her head and looked at Si Chen's sleeping face in profile, and laughed. At this time, she didn't have any of the demeanor of the female devil who had escaped from the tribulation realm. She clearly looks like a fool who only likes her husband. You are such a bad guy. You did so many bad things to me when I couldn't move. Lying in Si Chen's arms, Luo Jiru's thoughts couldn't help but go back to the time when Si Chen massaged her and kissed her. Thinking of this, Luo Jiro first put her ear close to Si Chen's chest. When Luo Jiro noticed that Si Chen was still sleeping deeply, her pretty face suddenly turned red. Immediately afterwards, Luo Jiro stood up and quickly pecked Si Chen on the lips. After doing all this, Luo Jiro quickly retreated into the quilt like a frightened ostrich. Ah, I'm so embarrassed. Although Luo Jiro had made all kinds of heroic words in her heart before waking up. But now that it was time to put it into practice, she still felt that her whole face was red and hot. She could even hear her own heartbeat. After a while, Luo Jiro secretly stretched out her head from the quilt and looked at Si Chen, who was sleeping again. When Luo Jiro discovered that Si Chen still hadn't woken up, she became bold again. How about another kiss? Kiss me again and go to sleep. Yeah, That's it. Ba chirp. Luo Zhiro pecked Si Chen's lips again several times like a chicken pecking rice, and then Luo Zhiro pursed her lips in satisfaction. Then Luo Zhiro propped up her chin with her arm, lying on her side and looking at Si Chen who was sleeping. After looking at Si Chen for a while, Luo Zhiro raised her hand and touched the red gold phoenix feathers on her hair. Idiot, you gave me everything, what will you do if you are in danger? Although Luo Zhiro said words of blame, the happy look in her eyes directly betrayed her. Seeing that Si Chen didn't wake up despite her kissing him several times, Luo Zhiro gradually became bolder. She rested her head on Si Chen's chest and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. Then she said timidly, "Bad guy, it's okay now. Not only is this hairpin yours, but this leader is also yours. HMPH, you can't run away now. Tonight, my leader will sleep in the arms of a bad guy like you." Lying in Si Chen's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, Luo Zhiro gradually became a little sleepy. The couple, who hadn't really said a word yet, just fell asleep hugging each other. The night passed so quickly. Just when the sun was about to rise in the sky, Luo Zhiro in Si Chen's arms opened her eyes again. She first looked at Si Chen, who was still sleeping, and then gently got up from Si Chen's bed. She tidied up her somewhat messy clothes. Speaking of which, Luo Zhiro is still wearing Si Chen's loose robes until now. Although Luo Zhiro was very tall, when she stood up, she still could only reveal a pair of white and tender feet. Luo Zhiro raised her arms, looked at the loose robe she was wearing, pouted, and did not change it. Then she arranged her hair that Si Chen had tied up for her. After doing all this, Luo Zhiro stood in the room and waited quietly. Time passed little by little. Perhaps because of his worries, Si Chen woke up very early today. Slowly opening his eyes, Si Chen quickly looked at the white jade bed beside him. He urgently needs to know how Luo Zhiro is doing. Quote exclamation mark quote. But when Si Chen looked at the bed beside him, he found that Luo Zhiro was no longer on it. Without any hesitation, Si Chen quickly stood up and looked around the room anxiously. The next moment, Luo Zhiro and Si Chen, who had been waiting in the room, looked at each other. Mother, oh no! Si Chen shouted subconsciously, but then he shook his head violently and interrupted his words. Who are you? Why are you in my room? At this time, Si Chen heard Luo Zhiro in front of him ask. Si Chen looked at Luo Zhiro, who was wearing his clothes and standing in front of him with an indifferent expression. She is still as beautiful as the nine heavens goddess, and her eyes are also very beautiful. Judging from her current behavior, Si Chen knew that she didn't know who she was or what he had done to her during this period of time. She was very close to Si Chen, but Si Chen felt that she was so far away from him. At this moment, Si Chen's eyes were extremely complicated. He stood up slowly, rolled up the floor mat under him and tightened it into the space ring. He whispered to Luo Zhiro, "Leader, my name is Si Chen. Leave now." After Si Chen said that, he took difficult steps and walked towards the door of the room. During this process, Luo Zhiro's eyes did not change at all. Finally, Si Chen came to the door of the room. At this time, he didn't hesitate anymore and opened the door of the room directly. And just when Si Chen was about to walk out of the small house where he and Luo Zhiro had lived together for a long time, Luo Zhiro's angry voice suddenly came from behind him. "Bad guy, stop. Tell me again, who are you? Say it. If what you say does not satisfy me, I will bite you to death." Si Chen, who was about to push the door open and go out, suddenly paused, even his hand stopped in the air. "Who are you from this leader?" Luo Zhiro's question just now kept repeating in his mind, and Si Chen turned around quickly. At this time, Si Chen's eyes were filled with ecstasy. At the same time, Si Chen also saw Luo Zhiro standing in front of him with a dissatisfied look on his face. "This leader is asking you, please tell me quickly." Luo Zhiro repeated. "I am." Facing Luo Zhiro's question, Si Chen didn't know how to answer it for a moment. "Answer, I am your husband-in-law." Si Chen was afraid that the first time he said these words, he would be crushed by Luo Zhiro, who was at the 9th level of the Tribulation Realm. Judging from Luo Zhiro's current performance, it seems that she really doesn't understand everything that has happened during this period of time. Otherwise, she would not ask Si Chen such questions. Si Chen didn't think that Luo Zhiro knew what happened during this period, but pretended not to know, just to tease him. Because based on Si Chen's understanding of Luo Zhirou's character, it is impossible for her to do such a thing. After thinking for a while, Si Chen asked softly, "Leader, during the time when you were unconscious, were you able to detect what was happening in the outside world?" "What did you call me? Say it again." As soon as Si Chen finished speaking, he found Luo Zhiro raising her head and glaring at him angrily. Coupled with Si Chen's loose robe, the bulging Luo Zhiro could be said to be extremely cute. Looking at Luo Zhiro like this, Si Chen really had a very strong urge to hold her in his arms. Si Chen asked helplessly, "What should I call you?" Seeing Si Chen's confused look, Luo Zhiro pouted and said, "How do you usually call me, the leader?" Si Chen just put his life on the line and shouted decisively, "Lady, HMPH, keep asking, quote. At this point, Si Chen doubted whether Luo Zhiro really knew what happened during this period. She was just teasing him. However, Luo Zhiro asked him to continue asking, so of course Si Chen had to continue asking. He lowered his head and looked at Luo Zhiro standing in front of him, and a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Madam, are you aware of everything happening in the outside world during this period?" Seeing the smile that suddenly appeared on the corner of Si Chen's mouth, Luo Zhiro suddenly didn't dare to meet Si Chen's eyes. Her eyes were a little dodgy. "Can't notice it. Really can't detect it. Of course it's true. How can I still lie to you? Oh, I should be able to hide the fact that this lady's little feet touched me. What nonsense are you talking about?" As soon as Si Chen finished speaking, Luo Zhiro in front of her suddenly raised her head. She glared at Si Chen and said angrily, "You said it didn't stink at all, yet you still hold it in your hand all day long. As a result, you are now saying that the leader's feet have offended you. Are you tired of it? Do you believe in this leader?" Halfway through Luo Zhirou's words, she suddenly covered her mouth with her hands like a frightened little animal. Si Chen could hardly suppress the smile in his eyes when he saw Luo Zhirou's lovely performance. "Madam, didn't you just say that you don't know everything that has happened during this time?" I didn't know," Luo Zhiro whispered. Si Chen leaned down and met Luo Zhirou's eyes. "Then why does the lady know that I said my lady's feet don't stink, but why does she still hold them in my hands all day long?" Before Luo Zhiro could continue speaking, she suddenly let out an exclamation. At this time, Si Chen put one hand around Luo Zhirou's waist, hugged her and turned her around, letting her lean against the door of the room. At the same time, Si Chen stepped forward and held Luo Zhiro in his arms in a dong posture. In this position, Luo Zhirou's body was so close to Si Chen that she could even hear Si Chen's heartbeat. Although Si Chen often did some embarrassing things to her when he was in a coma. But that was after all, when she was in a coma, and she didn't feel that shy yet. But now, Luo Zhiro has completely woken up, and everything she can feel is countless times clearer than before. Being held in Si Chen's arms like this again, Luo Zhiro felt that her whole head was in chaos. When this bad guy wakes up later, I will establish my status as the head of the family as soon as possible. This is what Luo Zhiro was thinking just now, but at this moment she seemed to have forgotten all about it. Looking at Luo Zhiro, who was curled up on his chest like a little sheep, the smile in Si Chen's eyes became even greater. He leaned close to Luo Zhirou's ear and said, "Madam, it is wrong to lie to your husband-in-law." "I didn't. Then, can the lady feel what happened during this period?" Si Chen asked again with a smile. "I can notice a little bit. Only a little." Luo Zhiro was in Si Chen's arms and said with a blushing face, "Maybe a little more than a little." Si Chen suddenly kept a straight face and asked seriously, "Then why did you pretend not to know me just now?" No. Seeing Si Chen's suddenly serious expression, Luo Zhiro was afraid that Si Chen would be angry. She quickly defended in a low voice, "I just want to hear you personally admit our relationship." Seeing Luo Zhirou's cautious look at this moment, Si Chen felt his heart was hit hard. He let Luo Zhiro lean against the door behind him, one arm around her waist, and the other hand held the back of her head. "Close your eyes." Like a well-behaved little rabbit, Luo Zhiro closed her eyes obediently. Immediately afterwards, Si Chen lowered his head and kissed Luo Zhiru's cherry lips deeply. Bad guy, you are so domineering. The touch from the tip of her tongue made Luo Zhiru's body tremble slightly, and then she was completely immersed in Si Chen's tenderness. I don't know how long passed like this, but just when Luo Zhiru's jade neck was stained with a hint of crimson. Only then did she suddenly realize what her original purpose was. Oh, no, 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 this leader wants to be the head of the family. Luo Zhiru, who was about to be eaten dry before she woke up, quickly supported Si Chen's chest with her hands. At this time, Si Chen also gently let go of the hand holding the back of Luo Zhiru's head. Lips parted, Si Chen just looked at Luo Zhiru quietly. Bad guy, let go of this leader. Madam, what's wrong? Si Chen tilted his head and asked. Snort. Luo Zhiru snorted softly, supported Si Chen with her hands and took a few steps back. She broke away from Si Chen's arms and glared at Si Chen with her hands on her hips. In the past, I couldn't act, so I let you do whatever you want. But now that the leader has woken up, I definitely can't let you do whatever you want. Si Chen helped Luo Zhiru stroke the messy hair behind her ears, and asked softly, what do you think, madam, of calling me Hulai? Luo Zhiru, who had just been about to establish his position as a younger brother in the family, felt his heart tremble again at Si Chen's sudden gentle gesture. I almost forgot the words I finally thought of. However, Luo Zhiru quickly calmed down and said seriously, first of all, you are not allowed to do anything wrong to this leader in the future. Si Chen took Luo Zhiru's hand. Can't we hug you then? Can. Then we can't kiss. Can't you massage your feet? Can. It's okay. The more Si Chen asked, the more guilty Luo Zhiru's answer became, and the redder his face became. Although she said she wouldn't let Si Chen do anything wrong, if Si Chen really didn't do the things he just asked Luo Zhiru will be the most unacceptable. Si Chen asked helplessly. Then what does it mean to be called Hulai? No matter what, you have to listen to my leader anyway. Okay, listen to my wife. Seeing that Luo Zhiru couldn't get it right no matter what she said, and had already begun to resort to unreasonable and coquettish ways, Si Chen could only respond to her with a doting look on his face. After hearing Si Chen promise herself, Luo Zhiru raised her head with satisfaction. That's pretty much it. As Luo Zhiru spoke, a smile couldn't help but appear on her delicate and flawless face. It was as if she herself was intoxicated by this feeling of happiness. Sir, today's spiritual porridge is ready. Just when Si Chen and Luo Zhiru were about to discuss the topic of who was the head of the family, the voices of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu suddenly came from outside the room. Hearing the voices of the two guardians, Luo Zhiru's eyes flashed with warmth. Luo Zhiru knew very well that when she was in the most critical moment, it was the two guardians who were desperately trying to wake her up. After Si Chen and Luo Zhiru got married, they always protected their couple. Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu were really like relatives of Luo Zhiru. Si Chen looked at Luo Zhiru with a smile, and at the same time he said to the two guardians. Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, there is no need to prepare spiritual porridge today. Master, why do you say that? Mu Lao asked. Ever since Si Chen, Luo Zhiru's complexion has been getting better and better under Si Chen's care. If the two guardians had nothing important to do, they would no longer enter the room. You will not be aware of what is happening in the room. Therefore, they did not know that Luo Zhiru had woken up at this time. Si Chen said again, because she might not want to drink. If you don't believe me, ask her yourself. At this time, Luo Zhiru also said, Mr. Lu, Mr. Mu, I really don't need to drink. Quote! Quote. Outside the room, hearing the extremely familiar voice coming from the room, the bodies of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu were shaken. Immediately, their eyes were filled with excitement. Leader, are you awake? What's wrong? I've been lying down for so long and I still can't wake up. In the room, Luo Zhiru's voice came again. Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, come to the room and talk. Well, after agreeing twice in succession, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu quickly opened the door to the room. The door opened, and Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu finally saw the figure that worried them day and night. At this time, Luo Zhiru was sitting at the table in the room, wearing the same clothes as Si Chen, and there was still a trace of blush on her pretty face. Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu entered the room, their eyes wandering back and forth between Si Chen and their leader. The two of them have been guarding Luo Zhiro since she was young, and they can be said to know Luo Zhiro best. After so many years, they have never seen Luo Zhiro with such an expression. How is it that this is still the murderous leader of the sect, and he is more like a young girl who has just begun to have an affair? Mr. Lu asked. Sir, was it you who awakened the leader? Si Chen smiled and nodded. Mr. Lu, Mr. Mu, I am lucky enough to live up to my fate. Thank you, sir. Hearing Si Chen's words, Mr. Lu and Mr. Mu were almost extremely excited. However, as if they suddenly thought of something, the two guardians suddenly knelt on the ground on one knee. Si Chen paused slightly. Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu and Mr. Mu looked at Luo Zhiro in front of them. Cult leader. We tried countless methods but couldn't wake you up, so we found the fortune teller. Letting the young master marry the leader is just a helpless move. You can't blame the young master for this. According to the two guardians' understanding of their leader, Si Chen should die in the hands of Luo Zhiro within a few breaths after Luo Zhiro wakes up. After all, her leader will not let anyone touch her body. Si Chen's ability to survive until now is considered to be a blessing. They had to quickly explain the reason to Luo Zhiro so that they could help Si Chen find a way to survive. Leader, if you want to blame us. Master, he is innocent. We have all seen how kind he has been to the leader during this period. Everything he did was just to awaken the leader. Even if he touches the leader's body, he will not die. Listening to the panicked words of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu, Luo Zhiro rolled her eyes at Si Chen with an angry look. She said in a calm tone, Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, you get up first. Leader, listening to Luo Zhiro's unwavering tone, the two guardians became even more panicked. Looking at Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu who were still kneeling on the ground, Luo Zhiro had no choice but to say, I won't kill him. After hearing Luo Zhiro's words, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu looked at Luo Zhiro with surprise. But, Luo Zhiro continued calmly, death penalty can be avoided, but living crime cannot be escaped. This, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu looked at each other. Luo Zhiro said without changing her expression, I just woke up, and the spiritual power in my meridians still needs a long time to recover. As punishment, Si Chen will help me restore my cultivation. Quote? After hearing Luo Zhiro's words, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu looked at each other in confusion. This living crime is indeed hard to escape. Why, do you have any other opinions? Luo Zhiro asked again. No, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu said in surprise. Thank you, master. Okay, you just need to step back first. At this time, Luo Zhiro said in a cold tone, don't tell anyone about my awakening. Not even the 7 elders. Yes, through Luo Zhiro's tone, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu also vaguely guessed something. But if Luo Zhiro didn't say anything, they wouldn't ask any more questions. Just when Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu were about to exit the room, Mr. Mu suddenly thought of something. She asked, Leader, please arrange for the young master to live in the side hall. Quote. Facing Mr. Mu's sudden question, Luo Zhiro didn't know how to answer it. Seeing that Luo Zhiro didn't speak, Mr. Mu also looked at his leader with confusion. After a long silence, Luo Zhiro said in a calm tone, no, just let him stay here. I need to punish him all the time. Quote. After hearing Luo Zhiro's words, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu both looked at Si Chen with sympathetic eyes. It's so miserable. He managed to save his wife with great difficulty, but in the end he had to be punished. And based on their understanding of their leader, this punishment must be very cruel. The two guardians were filled with guilt towards Si Chen and slowly closed the door to the room. They could no longer imagine what kind of torture Si Chen would suffer next. In the room, Si Chen and Luo Zhiro looked at each other. Si Chen asked with a smile, Madam. Luo Zhiro rolled her eyes at her, no playful smiles allowed. Si Chen came to Luo Zhiro and gently held her little hand. Why doesn't the lady let me live in the side hall? Facing Si Chen's actions, Luo Zhiro pursed her lips with bright eyes, but did not withdraw her hand. However, she still tried hard to maintain her dignity as the head of the family. This leader should have made it very clear just now. Then how are you going to punish me? Si Chen asked again. This leader had already thought about it when he was still unconscious. Si Chen's question can be regarded as the point that Luo Zhiro is most proud of. When Luo Zhiro was in a coma, besides being intoxicated by Si Chen's tenderness every day, what I think about most is how to establish my dominant position. And now, it's time for her to put her thoughts into action. Thinking of this, Luo Zhiro withdrew the hand held by Si Chen, stood up and walked towards the white jade bed. Come with me, the leader. Seeing Luo Zhirou's mysterious look, Si Chen was also a little curious about what she would do. Luo Zhiro came to the bed and sat on the edge of the white jade bed. Then she supported her body with her arms, leaned back slightly, and slowly raised her feet. Bad guy, in order to punish you severely, I want you to pinch my feet now. Yes, this is exactly one of the ways Luo Zhiro thought of punishing Si Chen when he was in a coma. Quote. At this time, Si Chen was standing beside the bed, while Luo Zhiro was sitting on the bed, raising her legs slightly. Because the legs were raised higher and Si Chen's clothes were looser, Luo Zhirou's smooth calves were also exposed. Coupled with the blush on Luo Zhirou's holy and flawless face, Si Chen only felt that his spirit had been hit hard. It is indeed a punishment, and it is a severe mental attack. Seeing Si Chen just standing by the bed and looking at him blankly, Luo Zhiro, who was beside the bed, also said shyly, "Bad guy, what are you looking at? Your eyes are so strange. Also, you have to tell me stories while massaging me." Luo Zhiro wrinkled her little nose and said to Si Chen, "The stories you told me some time ago were all wrong. Don't think I didn't hear it." While Luo Zhiro was speaking, Si Chen gently held her little feet in his hands. The golden green light of Resurrection Buddha's hand reappeared, and Si Chen accepted Luo Zhirou's punishment with a look of sadness and anger. Although this scene has happened more than once, Luo Zhiro was in a coma before. But now that she was awake, she could feel the warmth conveyed by Si Chen's big hands and his extremely aggressive gaze. Supporting her body with her arms, Luo Zhiro, who was reclining at this moment, had a very hot face. But, looking at Si Chen's sad and angry expression, Luo Zhiro suddenly felt a little happy in her heart. Looking at his expression, it seems that this trick of my leader is indeed effective. I will punish him like this in the future. Bad guy, tell me a story. While massaging Luo Zhiro, Si Chen said softly, "Let's tell a new story today. One that has never been told before." After that, Si Chen sat by the bed, put Luo Zhirou's legs on his own, and massaged her gently. At the same time, he was telling Luo Zhiro his newly remembered story. The atmosphere in the room is warm and romantic, and the man and woman in it are also enjoying the happiness that belongs to them alone. As time went by, the story came to an end, and the golden green light shining in Si Chen's hand gradually dimmed. When Snow White learned that Sao Pino's nose could grow or shorten freely, she decided to marry Sao Pino. In the end, the two of them lived a happy life without shame or shame in the forest. Quote. Luo Zhiro looked at Si Chen blankly. Why, Princess Snow White wants to marry him just because his nose will become longer or shorter. Ahem, I'll tell my wife about this issue next time. Luo Zhiro raised her foot and kicked Si Chen gently, wrinkled her nose and said, "Bad guy, I knew it wasn't a serious story as soon as I heard it." Si Chen pulled down the clothes on Luo Zhirou's legs to cover her calves. At the same time, he asked with a smile, "After such a long massage, do you feel like you have vented your anger?" Luo Zhiro raised her head slightly. "I will spare you for today." "Then what should we do next?" Si Chen asked again. Luo Zhiro looked at Si Chen. "What would you do at this time on weekdays?" Si Chen tilted his head. Practice in your room, or go to the 7th elder and 4th elder to practice." Si Chen said to Luo Zhiro like he was playing tricks. "Speaking of which, your husband, I have opened up 36 caves. Isn't that awesome?" Awesome. Why? Seeing Luo Zhirou's unhappy expression, Si Chen scratched his head in confusion. "What's wrong, madam?" Awesome. Luo Zhiro repeated. If Si Chen really believed Luo Zhirou's words, then there would be something wrong. He leaned down and stretched out his arms to hold her on his lap. Bad guy, let me go. Don't let me go, unless I tell me why you are unhappy. Suddenly, Si Chen found that Luo Zhiro in his arms was no longer struggling, and even the expression on his face became bright again. She held Si Chen's neck and smiled playfully. Mister, can you tell me what you think of Sha Wan? Why? Seeing Luo Zhirou's sudden change and the change in her name for herself, Si Chen felt confused. However, Si Chen still thought about Luo Zhirou's question carefully. After thinking for a while, Si Chen replied, Seventh Elder. She is a very good person. She has helped me a lot. Whether it is life or cultivation. Luo Zhirou still smiled brightly. Did she also help my husband in life? Well, you can say that. Si Chen obviously didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. He said sincerely, speaking of which, I was prepared before. If you don't accept me and want to drive me away, I will go live with her for a few days. Suddenly, a chill rushed from Si Chen's tailbone to Tian Ling Gai. At the same time, Luo Zhirou's kind voice also sounded in his ears. It's great, my husband and Sha Wan have a really good relationship. It's great, my husband and Sha Wan have a really good relationship. Something is wrong, the atmosphere is wrong. Si Chen looked at Luo Zhirou's slightly narrowed eyes and her rapidly recovering tribulation realm cultivation. Jealousy can also promote the recovery of cultivation. But now is obviously not the time to consider this. Because at this moment Luo Zhirou's little mouth can already hang an oil bottle. What Luo Zhirou was thinking and what she was showing at this moment were completely different. Snort. Just when Si Chen was thinking about how to redeem himself from the mistakes he had made, Luo Zhirou suddenly raised her hand and pinched Si Chen's waist hard. However, as if she was afraid of hurting Si Chen, Luo Zhirou just started to exert force, and then suddenly let go of her hand. Immediately afterwards, Luo Zhirou broke away from Si Chen's arms and grabbed the quilt on the side. He jumped to the innermost side of the bed and covered himself with a quilt. A word full of grievances came from the quilt. I'm going to bed now. You bad guy, go and stay at Sha Wan's place for a few days. Go away quickly, don't worry about your wife's life or death. At this time, Si Chen was sitting on the outside of the bed, looking at Luo Zhirou, who was tightly wrapped in a quilt, with a gentle smile in his eyes. My wife is so cute. Si Chen kicked off his shoes and slowly came to Luo Zhirou's side. Looking at Luo Zhirou, who was covered in quilt, Si Chen raised his hand and gently opened a small corner of the quilt. Excuse me, is there anyone inside? Luo Zhirou pulled back the corner that Si Chen had raised. At the same time, she said angrily, no one at all. Si Chen lay down next to Luo Zhirou, turned sideways and asked with a smile, is there really no one? Then why did I hear my wife's voice? Humph, this leader is not your wife. As soon as Luo Zhirou finished speaking, she found herself tightly hugged by a pair of strong arms. At the same time, Si Chen's voice came to my ears. My wife and I are already married, she can't run away even if she wants to. Through the thin quilt, Luo Zhirou could clearly feel the warmth that Si Chen conveyed to her. For a moment, Luo Zhirou's pretty face covered in the quilt felt a little hot, and she almost couldn't help but forgive Si Chen. However, Luo Zhirou then thought again, if she could forgive Si Chen so easily, then the status of the head of the family that she worked so hard to create will be ruined again. Ever since, Luo Zhirou thought quietly in her heart, one nice word is not enough to make me forgive you, at least I have to say a few more words. Ah, just when Luo Zhirou had made up her mind, she suddenly found that the quilt covering her was lifted from the side. Immediately afterwards, a figure quickly got in through the gap. Ever since, inside this small quilt, Luo Zhirou and Si Chen were facing each other. In the dark environment, their breathing and heartbeats were so clear. In this situation, Luo Zhirou felt that her mind was completely blank and she couldn't care less about getting angry. Si Chen asked in a low voice, Madam, do you want a hug? Luo Zhirou replied subconsciously, are you here? Si Chen slowly took Luo Zhirou's waist and said, of course, don't you want it, madam? Luo Zhirou did not stop Si Chen, but said timidly, but I am still a little unhappy in my heart. Woo! When Luo Zhirou exclaimed, Si Chen pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply at the same time. In this dark yet warm environment, all of Luo Jiru's attention shifted to the touch from the tip of her tongue. Gradually, Luo Jiru felt herself getting hot, and her whole body became dizzy. After an unknown amount of time, Luo Jiru pulled back the quilt covering their heads with only a little bit of consciousness. At this time, Luo Jiru was lying in Si Chen's arms, her face so red that it was about to drip. Si Chen hugged Luo Jiru and sat up, leaned down and whispered in her ear, as the lady still angry. "Ha, you're asking even though you know it." Luo Jiru stretched out her finger and poked Si Chen's chest. "You are such a bad guy. Even though I am still angry, you still come here to bully me." Si Chen looked at Luo Jiru's cute appearance and said with a smile, "It's all my fault, but part of it is my fault." Luo Jiru rolled her eyes at Si Chen in dissatisfaction. "How can you still partially blame this leader? Who is this lady so cute? Just lying there has already made me lose the ability to think. What nonsense are you talking about?" As the leader of the demon cult, Luo Jiru, who had never experienced anything between a man and a woman, had never heard of such disgusting words. Luo Jiru buried her face in Si Chen's arms, not even daring to look at Si Chen. However, Si Chen could tell from Luo Jiru's red earlobes that she seemed to like hearing these words. "I'm just a bit shy." After the two hugged each other like this for a while, Luo Jiru, who was lying in Si Chen's arms, suddenly raised his head and looked at Si Chen. "Madam, what's wrong?" Luo Jiru's expression was very serious at this time, and at the same time, there was a somewhat competitive look in his eyes. "Practice. I will guide you personally. Hurry up." Okay. In the room, Si Chen sat cross-legged on the white jade bed. Luo Jiru held Si Chen's big hand in hers. Carefully observe the flow of spiritual power in Si Chen's body. After a while, Luo Jiru looked at Si Chen in surprise. "Bad guy, why are your meridians so much thicker than ordinary people's?" "Thick and hard. The speed of spiritual power is dozens or hundreds of times that of others." Quote. This is not something to be said casually. Si Chen held Luo Jiru's hand and said helplessly, "Madam, let's hurry up and help you recover your cultivation. I just broke through, and there is nothing to cultivate now." Luo Jiru pursed her lips, feeling that what Si Chen said made sense. After sleeping for so long, Luo Jiru's meridians have been in a stagnant state. Even without Si Chen's help, the spiritual power in it would completely stop flowing. Although she has woken up now, it will still take some time to recover her cultivation. Si Chen looked at Luo Jiru and asked softly, "Is there any way to help the lady recover faster?" Luo Jiru pondered for a while and then said, "Introduce your spiritual power into my meridians and help me speed up the circulation of spiritual power in my meridians. That might help me recover a little faster." After listening to Luo Jiru's words, Si Chen seemed to suddenly think of something. He looked at Luo Jiru beside him. "Madam, is there a faster recovery method than this?" Luo Jiru looked at Si Chen. "What method?" Si Chen chuckled, moved closer to Luo Jiru, and whispered something in her ear. After Si Chen finished speaking, he looked at Luo Jiru, and then he saw Luo Jiru's pretty face turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang! "Bad guy, what are you thinking about all day long?" After kicking Si Chen out of bed, Luo Jiru covered her face with her hands and whispered, "Double cultivation. Double cultivation." Outside the room, I heard the sound that made the whole house tremble. Mr. Mew and Mr. Lu looked at each other. It seems that the leader has begun to punish the young master. Yes, the young master is so pitiful. In the room, Si Chen, who was kicked out of bed, raised his hand and grabbed the edge of the bed, and then slowly revealed his head. "This is just a whim. If the lady thinks it won't work, we won't try it." Snort. Luo Jiru raised her head and hummed softly, then raised her hand and patted the place beside her. "Come here quickly." Si Chen stepped on the ground, flew up from the ground, and quickly returned to Luo Jiru. Luo Jiru looked at Si Chen, who had returned to her side and pretended to carelessly smooth out his wrinkled clothes, and asked very casually, "Did the kick hurt you?" Luo Jiru's tone was very casual, but if you look carefully, you will find that her eyes never left Si Chen's body. When Si Chen looked at Luo Jiru's arrogant look, he suddenly covered his chest and shouted exaggeratedly, "Ah, it hurts." Luo Zhiro was shocked by Si Chen's performance. Her pretty face was full of anxiety. Where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? For a moment, Luo Zhiro suddenly felt extremely regretful. Luo Zhiro, dual cultivation is just dual cultivation. How can you attack neither lightly nor harshly? However, just when Luo Zhiro anxiously asked where Si Chen was hurting, Si Chen, who was holding his chest, suddenly stopped. He raised his head and slowly raised the hand that had been covering his chest. At this time, his thumb and index finger crossed together to make a heart shape. Seeing that my wife cares about me so much, I suddenly feel no pain. Be careful. Looking at Si Chen's evil smile and the heart shape he made with his fingers. Luo Zhiro was stunned for a moment, but then she understood what happened. Bad guy, you fool. Luo Zhiro shouted angrily, raised her hands and rushed towards Si Chen. Luo Zhiro had discovered before when she was still in a coma that although Si Chen was very gentle, he would always be mean to make her happy sometimes. But for some reason, Luo Zhiro not only couldn't feel the slightest dislike for such despicable behavior, but also, on the contrary, Si Chen would make him forget his worries every time. Luo Zhiro threw Si Chen down, and then to prevent him from resisting, Luo Zhiro sat directly on Si Chen. Luo Zhiro supported Si Chen's chest, pinched Si Chen's face with one finger, and kept spinning it. Strangle you to death, you bad guy. Madam, please spare my life. Si Chen was pinned down by Luo Zhiro and begged for mercy in an exaggerated manner. In the room at this time, the relationship between Si Chen and Luo Zhiro was heating up rapidly. But outside the room, bang, ah, it hurts. Madam, please spare my life. Listening to Si Chen's shouts coming from inside the room, the two guardians who had been worried that Si Chen would be tortured and killed by their leader became extremely anxious. Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu agreed that they had brought Si Chen back to marry Luo Zhiro. Now, Si Chen has won their recognition and successfully awakened Luo Zhiro. They had the responsibility to protect Si Chen's safety, and it would be best if their leader could give up punishing Si Chen. However, from the mournful cries, the two protectors can deduce. Si Chen is in danger now. My leader is using some very cruel methods to punish Si Chen. Thinking of this, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu looked at each other. Lao Mu, should we go in and persuade the leader? Is necessary. But, what if the leader blames us for suddenly breaking in? I can't control it anymore. The young master is in danger now. After the unanimous decision of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu, they now need to go in and dissuade their leader. After all, they are Luo Zhirou's protectors. They have watched Luo Zhiro grow up and have the closest relationship with Luo Zhiro. If there is anyone else in the entire White Feather sect who can make Luo Zhiro change her decision, perhaps they are the only two. To sum up, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu decided to enter the room to stop Luo Zhiro from punishing Si Chen. In the room, Luo Zhiro was sitting on Si Chen, calling him a bad guy and twisting on his face. Si Chen responded loudly to Luo Zhiro, while raising his hand to hold Luo Zhirou's waist to prevent her from falling. And just when the couple were flirting and their relationship was heating up rapidly, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu put their hands on the door of the room. Immediately after, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu made up their minds and pushed open the door of the room. They said quickly, "Leader, please spare the young master's life. Although he is guilty, his crime will not lead to death. If you are really angry, point it at both of us." Quote. At this time, Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu stood blankly at the door, their cloudy eyes widened, and even the words they had thought of before stopped at their lips. Opposite the two of them, Si Chen was lying on the bed, and Luo Zhiro was sitting on Si Chen's body. He even pinched Si Chen's face with both hands. At the same time, Luo Zhirou's pretty face was turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. The air fell into deathly silence at this moment. A thought arose in the minds of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu at the same time. It's okay now. Originally I was going to be scolded, but now I'm going to be silenced. The two guardians had great doubts in their heads. What kind of punishment method is this? In the dead silence, Si Chen slowly raised his head and looked at the two guardians. Mr. Mu, Mr. Lu, what's the matter? The leader and I are practicing. No. Nothing happened. After Mu Lao stammered, he pulled up Lu Lao beside him, and the two quickly closed the door of the room. Before leaving, Mr. Mu did not forget to say, "Master, please continue to punish the young master." The door to the room was quickly closed, and only Si Chen and Luo Zhiro were left in the room. At this time, Si Chen turned his head and looked at Luo Zhiro, who was pressing him. "Madam, shall we continue?" Bang! Luo Zhiro sat on the innermost side of the bed, with her back to Si Chen and not looking at him. "Bad guy, you have ruined the image of this leader in the minds of Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu." Si Chen scratched his head helplessly. "Madam, who would have thought that Mr. Mu and Mr. Lu would suddenly come in? HMPH. It's not because you always yell." Luo Zhiro turned her back to Si Chen. "I won't care about you anymore." "Are you really ignoring me?" Faced with Si Chen's question, Luo Zhiro hesitated for a moment, and then said with an inward look, "I'm just ignoring you." All right, Si Chen said in a calm tone. "Since the lady has decided, let's practice our own way." After Si Chen said that, he did not go to talk to Luo Zhiro, but went to the corner of the bed and sat down cross-legged. Soon, Si Chen entered a state of cultivation, and the room became quiet. At this time, Luo Zhiro, who had been turning her back to Si Chen, couldn't help but glance at Si Chen's position when she noticed Si Chen's state. When Luo Zhiro was sure that Si Chen had really entered a state of cultivation, an obvious look of panic flashed in her eyes. Did I go too far? Once this idea appeared in Luo Zhirou's mind, she became more and more determined. Thinking of this, Luo Zhiro quickly turned around, no longer facing Si Chen. But Luo Zhiro waited for a long time, but did not see any movement from Si Chen. He was still practicing. Si Chen just sat there, and Luo Zhiro became more and more anxious. Finally, Luo Zhiro stood up, trotted to Si Chen's side, and sat down close to him. At the same time, she did not forget to arch her head towards Si Chen, occupying his position. At this time, Si Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked at Luo Zhiro. "Madam, what's the matter? Didn't you promise to cultivate yourself?" Looking at Si Chen's unwavering gaze, Luo Zhiro became increasingly panicked. But Luo Zhiro had never encountered such a situation before. She didn't know how to speak. Finally, Luo Zhiro whispered, I want to practice in your position." "Oh," Si Chen tilted his head. However, Si Chen didn't say much, but stood up and walked towards the other side. Soon, Si Chen continued to practice on the other side. It was also at this time that a figure sneakily came to Si Chen's side, sat down and arched towards him again. "I suddenly feel that that position is not good. I want to be here." After Luo Zhiro said this, a blush flashed on her pretty face. "It's so embarrassing, so embarrassing." Si Chen opened his eyes and looked at Luo Zhiro. At this time, the smile in his eyes could hardly be suppressed. "Madam, how can you always disturb other people's cultivation? Didn't you agree that you should cultivate yourself?" This leader suddenly changed his mind. The more Luo Zhiro spoke, the softer her voice became. "This leader has decided to let you practice with me." "Oh," Si Chen tilted his head. Luo Zhirou's beautiful eyes glared. "Do you want to question the decision of the head of the family?" "Don't dare." Si Chen raised his hand and pinched Luo Zhirou's nose. "How dare I go against my lady's decision?" That's pretty much it." Luo Zhiro leaned on Si Chen and stretched out her arms towards Si Chen. "Why don't you hug the head of the family?" Looking at Luo Zhirou's arms stretched out towards him, Si Chen's eyes held an irresistible tenderness. Without any hesitation, Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's waist and hugged her directly. Let her sit face to face in his arms, with her legs wrapped around Si Chen's waist. Being held in Si Chen's arms again, although this gesture really made Luo Zhiro feel embarrassed and angry, there was still a hint of secret joy in her heart. Because at least Si Chen is no longer preparing to practice alone as he was just now. Holding Si Chen's neck, Luo Zhiro drew circles on Si Chen's shoulders with her fingers. "Bad guy, were you unhappy just now?" Si Chen smiled slightly. "When?" "Just now, when I said I would ignore you," Luo Zhiro said in a low voice. As if she was afraid that Si Chen was still unhappy, Luo Zhiro said quickly, "I was just talking nonsense, I didn't mean it." Si Chen nodded. "I know." Luo Zhiro was suddenly stunned. "What do you know?" Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's waist and looked into her eyes. "I know the lady doesn't really want to ignore me." And you? Luo Zhiro pouted in dissatisfaction. Then why did you ignore me and start practicing on your own? Because. Si Chen first held Luo Zhirou's waist tightly with his arms to prevent her from running away. Then he chuckled. Because I'm pretending. Ah, you are such a bad guy. You're playing hard to get with me, aren't you? Hearing Si Chen's words, Luo Zhirou's little fist kept beating Si Chen's chest, while Si Chen coaxed her with a doting smile. After Luo Zhirou vented her anger on Si Chen's chest, she poked Si Chen's chest dissatisfied. Humph, a bad guy who knows how to bully others. Si Chen held Luo Zhirou's waist with one hand and grabbed her wrist with the other. At the same time, he smiled and said, I have a question for you, madam. Luo Zhirou finally felt relieved at this time, because she knew that Si Chen was not really angry with her. She asked, what's the problem? Si Chen looked at Luo Zhirou's big watery eyes. Why did you come to me, madam? I thought you would wait for me to coax you. What did you say? Hearing Si Chen's words, Luo Zhirou wrinkled her nose in dissatisfaction, and at the same time raised her hand and poked Si Chen's face hard. Making eye contact with Si Chen, she said softly, who told you, this bad guy, to have already married this leader? As a husband and wife, of course both of us have to contribute. Of course there is a more important point. Luo Zhirou suddenly became extremely proud. She raised her head and looked at Si Chen with a condescending gaze. As the head of the family, of course I have to take the lead in everything I do. Even taking the initiative to apologize. Hearing Luo Zhirou's words, Si Chen was stunned for a moment, and then he hugged Luo Zhirou tightly in his arms. He didn't know why, but Luo Zhirou's tone of voice was very arrogant, but his heart was hit hard. There was a smile in his eyes. Does the lady also have to take the lead in things like washing dishes and cooking? Luo Zhirou suddenly paused and tilted her head. This, I don't want it. Ah, it's so itchy. Luo Zhirou was held in Si Chen's arms. She suddenly let out a sweet cry and then fell towards Si Chen. Si Chen scratched Luo Zhirou's little nose and said to her with a smile, Madam, should we start practicing? Certainly. Luo Zhirou gently patted Si Chen's hand away. I have wanted to practice for a long time. If you hadn't been stopping me, my cultivation would have been completely restored. Oh, is that so? Seeing that Si Chen's big hand reached her waist again, Luo Zhirou quickly grabbed Si Chen's big hand and said with beautiful eyes. Stop tickling this leader, otherwise I will punish you severely. I'm scared. Si Chen didn't tease her anymore. After all, the top priority now was to help Luo Zhirou recover her cultivation as soon as possible. Si Chen looked at Luo Zhirou's pretty face and asked, Madam, how can I help you? When asked by Si Chen, Luo Zhirou's pretty face suddenly turned red for some reason. But she soon returned to normal, and she said seriously, I will let go of my body's guard, and then you can let your spiritual power enter my meridians. Due to a long period of coma, my meridians are currently congested, and I need you. Si Chen tilted his head. Do you need me to give you a little help? Luo Zhirou spat softly. Bah. It's not a poke, it's a pass. Luo Zhirou patted Si Chen's hand holding her waist. Bad guy, let me go, let's start now. Isn't this okay? Si Chen asked. Of course not. Luo Zhirou rolled her eyes at Si Chen with an angry look. How can we still hold each other while practicing? Okay. Si Chen let go of the arm holding Luo Zhirou, and the expression on his face gradually became serious. Accepting outsiders' spiritual power into one's own meridians is an extremely dangerous thing. Luo Zhirou turned her back to Si Chen, and her whole temperament also changed instantly. Letting go of the meridians, defense against unfamiliar spiritual power is a taboo for any monk. But at this moment, Luo Zhirou didn't hesitate at all. She had no reservations about Si Chen. Si Chen raised his right hand and gently placed it on the back of Luo Zhirou's heart. At this moment, the meridians throughout his body were fully functioning. Under the speed of Si Chen's spiritual power that was dozens or hundreds of times higher than that of ordinary people, the majestic sea of spiritual power gathered in Si Chen's hands. Madam, I'm coming in. Well, come in. As soon as he finished speaking, Si Chen's surging spiritual power merged into Luo Zhirou's meridians. At this time, Si Chen also discovered Luo Zhirou's meridians that had become stagnant due to a long period of soullessness. Without any further hesitation, Si Chen controlled his spiritual power and slowly promoted the flow of spiritual power in Luo Jiru's meridians. At the beginning, because Luo Jiru's meridians were severely blocked, the flow of spiritual power was also very slow. When the meridians completely circulated through Luo Jiru's body's meridians, the flow of spiritual power gradually began to speed up. At the same time, the spiritual powers in Si Chen and Luo Jiru's bodies were completely integrated at this moment. The spiritual power flowed out of Si Chen's body, washed around Luo Jiru's body, and then returned to Si Chen's body again. During this process, Luo Jiru's meridians began to gradually recover, and the aura exuding from her whole body also increased rapidly. However, Luo Jiru's pretty face is also turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the jade neck turned pink. After all, the spiritual power that entered her body at this time was not an ownerless thing, but came from Si Chen's body. In this case, these spiritual powers are bound to carry part of Si Chen's own aura. In the past, Luo Jiru would feel dizzy just by being held in Si Chen's arms and smelling his scent. What's more, the spiritual power full of Si Chen's breath is now roaming in the body. This also means that although Luo Jiru's cultivation is recovering rapidly, but her body also began to feel a very strange feeling to her. This feeling made Luo Jiru extremely shy, and she almost couldn't help but want to throw herself into Si Chen's arms. Suddenly, Luo Jiru, who was sitting quietly, moved in the direction of Si Chen. And as time went by, Luo Jiru, who had already escaped from Si Chen's arms, became closer and closer to Si Chen. "Bad guy, hold me tight." When Si Chen heard Luo Jiru's words, a smile appeared on his lips and he hugged her directly. "Madam, I remember someone just said that you can't hold it while practicing." "Huh, who said that?" "I didn't say that." Si Chen hugged Luo Jiru from behind, and placed his hands filled with majestic spiritual power on her lower dantian. Continue to help her promote the spiritual power in her meridians. I don't know how long it took, but when Luo Jiru suddenly opened her mouth and exhaled a breath of hot breath, Si Chen slowly withdrew his hand. At this time, Luo Jiru was leaning in Si Chen's arms, looking completely spoiled. However, although Luo Jiru's whole body became strange because of Si Chen's aura, the improvement in her cultivation was also visible to the naked eye. If it was only at the first level of the tribulation realm before, now it has at least returned to the third level of the tribulation realm. Si Chen looked at Luo Jiru's appearance at this time, his face full of helplessness. "Madam, how do you feel?" "Bad guy, what do you think?" At this time, Luo Jiru was so ashamed and angry that she no longer had the courage to even look at Si Chen. At the same time, a thought suddenly appeared in Luo Jiru's mind. It's just that the spiritual power enters the meridians. If it is really dual cultivation. Ah, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Si Chen looked at Luo Jiru, who suddenly covered his face with his hands and started talking nonsense, with a confused look on his face. After Luo Jiru forcibly stabilized her emotions, she looked at Si Chen with a serious look. "Ahem, my leader has recovered a lot with your help. Well done." Si Chen asked with a smile. "Then, is there anything uncomfortable in the body of the leader?" "No. No." Luo Jiru would definitely not tell Si Chen about the strange feeling coming from her body. Turning to look out the window, the sky had completely darkened. Suddenly, Luo Jiru sat up from Si Chen's arms. "Bad guy, I don't want to wear your clothes anymore, I'm going to change into mine." "Huh." Si Chen was slightly startled. "Okay, why do you need to change clothes all of a sudden? And it's already night." I just want to change suddenly. Don't worry about it." Luo Jiru quickly jumped off the bed and trotted into the innermost part of the room. Then the rustling sound of changing clothes came from the room. Si Chen lay on the bed confused, thinking about what to do next. Not long after, footsteps came from Luo Jiru's side. And Luo Jiru's shy cry, "Bad guy, look at me." Following the sound, Si Chen was stunned when he saw Luo Jiru at this time. Luo Jiru had already changed out of Si Chen's loose robe and put on a white gauze skirt. Different from the previous long skirt, this time the gauze skirt only reached the calf, and Luo Jiru's smooth calf was completely exposed to the air at this moment. Against the background of the red gold phoenix feathers and the long hair that was randomly tied up, a blush appeared on the cheeks with a little makeup. What caught Si Chen's attention the most was the shimmering golden anklet on Luo Zhiru's ankle. The white and tender skin contrasts with the golden anklet, adding a bit of thrilling beauty. At this time, Luo Zhiru just stood there, looking into Si Chen's eyes. Noticing Si Chen's gaze, Luo Zhiru subconsciously grabbed the hem of her skirt with her hands. "Bad guy, your eyes are so strange." Si Chen suddenly suppressed the smile on his face and said seriously, "I used to think that my wife was a fairy above the 9 heavens, but now I find that I was wrong." Luo Zhiru was at a loss when she heard Si Chen's words. She thought Si Chen was dissatisfied with her now. "Doesn't it look good?" "Of course not." Si Chen shook his head decisively. Si Chen took Luo Zhiru's hand and asked her to sit beside the bed. "Because I suddenly discovered that my wife is much more beautiful than the fairy." Ah! When Si Chen finished speaking, Luo Zhiru was stunned for a moment, then she stretched out her finger and poked Si Chen's chest. "If you are smooth-tongued, you can say nice things." Even so, the joy in Luo Zhiru's eyes had completely betrayed her heart. As the saying goes, a woman's appearance pleases her, which is why Luo Zhiru wants to show her most perfect side in front of Si Chen. And Si Chen can fully appreciate her beauty, so isn't this a two-way journey? At this time, Si Chen and Luo Zhiru were sitting beside the bed, and the moonlight outside the window shone brightly on them. Si Chen looked at Luo Zhiru's delicate and pretty face and said softly, "Madam, do you want to sleep together today?" "What did you say?" Luo Zhiru looked at her with dissatisfaction and wrinkled her nose. "Are you planning to sleep somewhere else?" Si Chen rubbed Luo Zhiru's wrinkled brows and said, "Isn't it because I'm afraid that my wife isn't ready to sleep with me, so I'm asking?" "HMPH. Since you asked the question sincerely." Luo Zhiru looked at Si Chen very formally. "This is actually part of your punishment." "Oh, is this considered punishment?" Si Chen asked with a smile. "Of course." Luo Zhiru seemed a little guilty, but she still said seriously, "Now this leader will punish you." Si Chen hugged Luo Zhiru into his arms and leaned back. "Then I have no choice but to accept your wife's punishment." In the room, Si Chen was lying on the pillow, and Luo Zhiru was resting on Si Chen's chest. At the same time, she had a look of pride on her pretty face. This was the first night the couple experienced together after going through many hardships. Neither of them felt sleepy at all, and they both had countless things to say to each other. "Madam, do you know who caused you to enter the soulless state?" After experiencing so many things, Si Chen actually had some conjectures in his mind. After all, among all the people he has come into contact with during this period, there is only one person who is the most suspicious. However, all this needs to be confirmed from Luo Zhiru. Hearing Si Chen's words, a strong murderous aura flashed in Luo Zhiru's eyes. When she was with Si Chen, she would always hide her side as the leader of the demon sect and leave the gentlest side to Si Chen. But this was only when facing Si Chen. When facing others, Luo Zhiru is still the leader of the demon cult who controls countless lives and deaths. She said softly, "A few months ago, Chu Baiquan came to see me once and presented me with a box full of black gas." Hearing Luo Zhiru's words, Si Chen's brows instantly furrowed. At this time, he knew that the truth was gradually coinciding with his guess. Afterwards, Luo Zhiru told Si Chen the specific reasons why she entered the soulless state and the whole story. During this whole process, Luo Zhiru's tone was very calm. But Si Chen knew that Luo Zhiru's heart was far from as peaceful as her appearance showed. After all, without Si Chen's presence, Luo Zhiru would really have died in the hands of Chu Baiquan. The white feather sect that Luo Zhiru worked so hard to manage will completely fall into Chu Baiquan's hands. And just after Si Chen appeared, Chu Baiquan tried to kill him and win over him several times, wanting to use this to cut off Luo Zhiru's last hope. This is almost overwhelming hatred. Si Chen held Luo Zhiru's hand tightly and said softly, "Chu Baiquan must not be alone, there must be someone behind him to support him." Luo Zhiru lay in Si Chen's arms and nodded gently. "This is also my biggest headache, because I don't know how to find out who is hiding behind him." Luo Zhiru himself also knew that if he simply killed Chu Baiquan, it would be easy to do. However, once Chu Baiquan dies, his comrades and those who supported him will completely disappear. And he might attack her and Si Chen again at any time. This is not the result Luo Zhiro wants to see. For a moment, the room fell into silence again. After an unknown amount of time, Luo Zhiro suddenly noticed that Si Chen's arm holding her tightened a bit. Luo Zhiro raised her head and met Si Chen's gentle eyes. I'll take care of it. Ha! Luo Zhiro was suddenly stunned. What to solve? Isn't it difficult for me to find out who is Chu Baiquan's accomplice? My husband, help you. Hearing Si Chen's words, Luo Zhiro shook her head immediately without thinking. No, Si Chen touched Luo Zhirou's head. Why can't it work? Madam didn't even listen to my solution. No matter what, it won't work. Luo Zhiro said without giving in at all. I will not allow you to be in any danger, do you understand? Luo Zhiro put her hands around Si Chen's neck and said to Si Chen very seriously, this leader had already made up his mind when he was in a coma. When he wakes up, he will definitely let you hold his thigh. But now I haven't let you hug my thighs, so how can I let you take risks? Seeing Luo Zhirou's serious look, Si Chen's eyes became even more gentle. He smiled and asked, can I really hug my thighs? Luo Zhiro nodded heavily. Of course, this leader has already thought about it this way. Ah! The next second, Si Chen took Luo Zhiro from his arms to the pillow, and he slowly leaned down. And Luo Zhirou's exclamation also came. Young disciple, that's not how you hug your thighs. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.